Day and good evening. This roundtable hearing conducted by the Committee on Education, Public Safety, and the Arts is called to order at 5:36 Tuesday afternoon, Chamorro Standard Time. Notice of the hearing was disseminated to all local media outlets on April 18, 2023, with the second notice provided on April 23rd, 2023. Notice of the hearing was also made known on the Guam Legislature's website and the Government of Guam Public Notices portal. This evening, the committee is holding a roundtable hearing to discuss the Department of Corrections with the following items on the agenda: legislative needs and assistance, the new prison, security issues, contraband and contraband mitigation, hiring and retention, work release programs, and recovery programs. We'll also allow for a public comment, if any. I'd like to thank my colleague so far for joining us today, Senator Jesse Lujan. And I'd like to also welcome the Department of Corrections staff who are in attendance today. I'd like to go over the general rules of conduct. Individuals testifying shall first be recognized by the chair before speaking, and state your name, please, for record-keeping purposes. Questions and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda. Personal inference as to the character or motive of any senator or individual testifying is not permitted. The chair of the committee may order the removal from a hearing any member of Iles, Latour, and Guam who fails to observe proper decorum pursuant to the 37th Guam Legislature standing rules. Any violation of this general rule of conduct will result in removal from the hearing by the Sergeant at Arms or his representative. You will get a ticket. Speaking to me? Yeah, only to you. Better watch yourself, Senator Lujan. So, of course, we wanted to call this roundtable hearing to catch up with the Department of Corrections. We had initially called it for earlier in the year, but due to the untimely passing of the former director, Bob Camacho, we obviously had to reschedule. So I did want to start with a moment of silence for Mr. Camacho. And we do have in attendance the acting director for this. Is this your second time back? Joe Carbolito is the acting director, and we have the deputy director, Mr. Andrew Kittigwa Atoigui, as well as the staff here. I see Mr. Mark Perez. Ma'am? Clarice?
Administrative Services Officer.
Okay, you're the ASO. All right, and then we do have some staff in attendance in the chair. So let's get right into it. My staff was joking how long we're going to be here. I think I have the record for the longest hearings in the legislature. So I told them today, God willing, we're going to set a record for shortest hearing. We're still going to have a lot of questions, but it's our get right to it. And I understand there's a PowerPoint presentation. Major Anton Uggan? Yes, sir. Thank you. If you don't mind, turn on your microphone.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We do have something.
All right, Major. Thank you. Proceed.
Okay. So can we put it up in the... Okay. Test. Good afternoon, Senators. Sir, Chairman Chris Barnett, Vice Chair. Well, I have all the committee members here, so I'll just say the committee members of Public Safety and Senator Lujan. Thank you. I am Joseph Carbolito, the Acting Director of Corrections. I would like to thank each of you for allowing me the opportunity to appear and testify at this roundtable hearing on matters concerning DOC. I have here with me members of my team, to include my Deputy Director, Andrew Atoigui, the Administrative Services Division Chief, Major Anton Uggan, the Administrative Services Officer, Clarice Briggs, and Corrections Social Worker Supervisor, Mark Perez. My team and I have prepared for you a testimony on the following agenda based on the items listed for discussion: the legislative needs and assistance, new prison, security issues, contraband mitigation, hiring and retention, community release programs, recovery programs, and accomplishments and ongoing projects. Starting with legislative needs and assistance. So DOC currently has 153 corrections officers. Per policy and safety demands, due to the current prison's design, we should have 300 plus officers to handle the day-to-day operations of all the facilities. We are requesting for an increase in the number of officers allotted in the budget law from 20 to 30 officers. This is due to the unusual increase in the prisoner and detainee population from the DOC submitted, when DOC first submitted its budget. There has been an unusual increase in our prison population. We entered this year with 680 prisoners, and we are currently at 820 prisoners. That's an increase of 140 prisoners. The next slide will explain the unusual influx of prisoners. Part of the perceived difficulty in hiring corrections officers is the backlog of processing new applicants for the corrections officers positions. This reality is true for the other law enforcement entities because DOA personnel section are also short of staff to adequately process said applicants. As a solution, we recommend, and it will be feasible, to outsource the processing and testing of new officers to a private company. This would be for the screening of all written applications, proctoring of required written and physical agility tests, and the provision of the background checks, polygraph, psychological assessment. So in reference to the psychological assessment, it would be good for all law enforcement agencies to outline a standardized psychological assessment. Like the hospital and DYA, DOC is in the business of providing a service to prisoners on a 24/7 basis. We cannot shut our doors, nor can we outright release all prisoners due to utility outages, equipment breakdowns, shortage of funding, or a pandemic. DOC must provide the island of Guam with a safe place to house law offenders awaiting trial and to serve their sentence. Like all service-oriented establishments, DOC is also not immune to equipment breakdowns and repair services. It's during these critical times that we need the ability to procure what is needed in the most expedient manner, keeping to the requirements of the procurement law. With this said, it's very advantageous if the line agency procurement process can be modernized and more effective in dealing with the procurement process. As an alternative solution, quite possibly, allow DOC to enter into an MOU with autonomous agencies to provide DOC with procurement services, or allow us to have our own procurement authority in order to move the procurement of emergency repair services and parts expeditiously. Item 2, new prison. I'm going to go ahead and defer this area to Major Anton Ogun.
Good afternoon. Currently, DOC's quest for a new prison is currently in the lengthy first stage of budgeting and planning. In fact, in working with DPW, a draft request for proposal for architectural service has been created and is currently under legal review. The government of Guam appropriated funding for DPW. The governor of Guam appropriated funding for DPW to draft an RFP for architectural services to design a new prison based on DOC's master plan. As will be seen and discussed further at this roundtable, DOC and Guam is in the desperate need of a new prison, a modernization prison that will be federally compliant and will not need as many correction officers to manage the prisoners. Been over 20 years, DOC's housing units have quickly become antiquated and overpopulated through the years. Instead of building a new prison, decisions were made to convert activity centers and offices into housing units, and constructing additional housing units, 5 in Manila, of which 4 are temporarily remnant shelters from the influx of Chinese nationals in the late 1990s, and 1 in Agana. Due to the creation of and conversion of said buildings, it takes more officers to properly manage the prisoners. In fact, our population has gone from 680 in January, like we mentioned earlier, to 820 as of today. The high influx of prisoners is attributed to the courts processing and sentencing more defendants and probationers now that the pandemic is over. Two, parole board is revoking more parolees now that the pandemic is over, and there is a big push by the Attorney General Moreland, to arrest and keep repeat offenders and drug abusers confined during pretrial stage, and the new war on panhandlers. Additionally, as a call for a new prison is working with our GMH partners, DOC is severely in need of permanent isolation units or cells for both male and female prisoners. As an example, it has been experienced that a single prisoner with active TB shuts down a whole unit or housing section because there is no proper isolation cell at DOC. We are in desperately need of a new prison. Okay. Okay. This one's mine.
Yeah.
Security. I'll also cover the slide on security issues. Okay. Shortage of officers. In March of 2022, DOC had close to 200 correctional officers with a population of 640 prisoners. Currently, we have 153 correctional officers and a population of over 800. Since January 2023, we have lost 12 officers and seen our prison population go from 680 to 820. The increase of 140 prisoners mainly due to the ending of the pandemic, with the court sentencing more detainees, defendants, parole boards revoking more parolees, and AG Moreland pushing out confined more repeat offenders and drug abusers, to include panhandling. Officer burnout is a big challenge in our retention efforts. It is hoped with additional officers, which involves the tangibility of new recruiting class, current officers may be willing to hang on a little longer because relief is on the way. To see a recruiting cycle is the expectation of relief at the end of their training cycle. Overpopulation. As indicated above, we are currently overpopulated. Not only is it a challenge to provide adequate safety and security for prisoners and staff, but is an equal challenge to provide adequate sleeping quarters and bedding for all prisoners. Some units designed as a two-person cell is housing 3 or 4 prisoners. At the department, we are working with various agencies like DYA, Guam Homeland, GMH, private business, hotels, and laundry business for donation of beds, cots, and bedding items, bed sheets, and things like that. Equipment needs. To provide adequate and safe housing, DOC has a problem with electrical generators, and at times are problematic during power outage and non-functioning AC units in high prison population housing. We continue to struggle to employ a skilled workforce to address these types of machines. However, many skilled labor do not want to apply for technical trades within DOC. As an alternative, we would reach out to and get assistance from autonomous agencies to provide assistance at no charge for these technical help in emergencies. Furthermore, at the roundtable, we humbly request for the legislature body fund a maintenance technician position, plumbing, HVAC, and electrical that is currently vacant in this upcoming budget. Additionally, it is a loss when a correction officer resigns within a few years of being initially trained. It is a loss to a department for losing an officer, but also a loss for the government in not being able to recuperate the funds spent on training the officer. As an incentive to recruit and remain at DOC, it may be worthwhile to look into incentivizing the recruitment and retention process, much like how the military provides bonuses for recruitment. Bonus pay is paid out in increments during the anniversary dates. Right? That would be one of our suggestions. The government legislature should consider including a clause in the hiring process for collections and lost training funds if a recruiter or officer resigns upon hiring or swearing in as an officer within 5 years. Right? What else? Next one is yours, sir.
Evening, Senators. Andrew Twiggy. I'm going to go ahead and cover the contraband mitigation. Mitigation techniques include pat-downs, prisoner strip searches, bag searches, random cell searches, employee cell phone registration, and paytel monitoring. The challenges to mitigate contraband introduction into the prison system is generally the lack of officers to consistently effectuate policies. Mitigation efforts and contraband throw-ins, also known as airmail, in the facility. Currently, the department has all necessary policies and general orders in place to address the prevention of contraband. However, as indicated earlier, we are short of officers to fully and consistently effectuate the policies in regards to contraband prevention and detection. With my leadership, we are currently working into fully implementing a K-9 program to detect all types of contraband. This includes narcotics and cell phone. Additionally, we are looking into additional funding for installation of more surveillance cameras and possibly a high-rise golf net. Our future efforts is dependent on the procurement. It would be desirable if this government branch, the legislature, can assist in streamlining the much burdensome procurement process.
I'm going to go ahead and cover the hiring and retention. So we have currently 213 FTEs. That's total employees at Department of Corrections, which 153 are corrections officers. We prospectively need another 150 officers to properly run the facility and support sections based on existing policies and for the overall safety of staff, prisoners, and the residents of Guam. Not everyone wants to be a corrections officer. This difficulty of recruiting corrections officers is not a problem that only is isolated to Guam in dealing with, but it's also an issue throughout the United States. Though it is difficult to recruit corrections officers when compared to the application response to GPD, Customs, Fire, we are able to slowly fill our vacancies. Currently, we are testing, started since last week, April 17 to the 28th, over 200 prospective candidates to fill 33 vacancies for FY23 and 20 more for FY24, which is a total of 53. The 20 officers for FY24 is in the budget request. We have met with DOA management to help streamline the process for recruitment during these moments of the officer shortage. We are currently working on having GPD and other law enforcement agencies monitor. That's the proposed, right? Based on our discussions with DOA, written tests, conducting the background checks, polygraph, psychological, all the requirements by statutory mandates. So please note that a recruit, based on this discussion that we're having right now to try to expedite the process, the recruit is not a corrections officer or a sworn peace officer until they're sworn in. They take the oath. So just food for thought there, okay? And when we talk about trying to expedite this process, we're not trying to cut corners, right? It's still all gonna be done, but not the way it's being done right now, where it's step by step from A, B, C, D down the line. We want to bring them in the front end and then make them complete all the requirements by the time they take the oath and by the time they graduate from training. That's the discussion that we're having with DOA. We are also working with the governor's office to streamline the law enforcement application process and applicant listing. So retention, there's already a 25% retention pay, plus the 18% law enforcement pay, which equals to 43, and then you add the 10% hazardous pay to that. With 53% incentive pay, combination of retention, incentive, LE, adjustment, and hazardous pay, corrections officers are still resigning from the department. That tells you something, right? It's really not all about the pay. So as indicated earlier, we lost 12 officers since January 2023. The salary and incentives are not the solutions to retain officers. It is well known that officers resign because of officer burnout. Okay. The rise of the prisoner population and the shortage of officers leads to increased overtime and employee burnout. In a study in the book of corrections facilities and correctional treatment, it was found that the study between correctional officers and nursing staff burnout showed that there's a greater prevalence of burnout amongst the corrections officers. Emotional and personal burnout is a big challenge in officer retention. Additionally, the social work division currently has only 4 social workers, not including the administrator. And this is to handle 335 convicted inmates. 1 social worker is resigning effective April 28. That's going to bring us, another 1 down from our 4 only social worker staff, right, to 3. In a separate study found in the U.S. Department of Justice Office Justice Program's website, the abstract needs, prison social workers have a higher level of burnout than corrections officers. This study seems to prove that even the helping profession of social workers have reservations about working in a prison. They also need help. I'll go ahead and defer item 6, which is the community release programs, to the supervisor for casework, Mark Paris.
Community release programs. Based on Guam law and executive order, there are 3 community release programs in which prisoners classified minimum amount or higher can participate in. The work credit program, prisoners can work at cleaning public roadways, parks, and beaches. For every 40 hours worked is 1 day off of their sentence. A corrections officer is supervising the work credit detail in the public. Work release program. Prisoners permitted by law can attain gainful employment within the community provided they are 1 year away from their parole date or the full-time release date. A percentage of their paychecks are distributed according to law. 45% criminal injuries compensation fund, 45% fines and fees or child support, 10% inmate needs. A corrections officer transports the inmate to and from place of employment and conducts periodic checks throughout the day. Education release program. Prisoners permitted by law can attend places of higher education to further their educational goals, provided the prisoner funds their education. Inmates are transported to and from school by corrections officers and are monitored by the officers while on school campus. Due to the shortage of officers, these programs are not in use. Next slide.
Sorry, Mr. Paris, so both programs are not in use?
Yes, they are not in use because it requires a corrections officer
Right.
to take them out, monitor them.
How many years have we not been allowing the prisoners to use these programs?
From the start of COVID,
So 2020?
2020.
Thank you, sir.
In the early part of 2020, they were participating, work release, education release, work credit. Then once COVID hit, we seized everything because of the pandemic. Okay. Next. Recovery programs. RSAT. Currently, 13 inmates are participating in this 30th cycle, scheduled to complete residential treatment in July 2023. The 31st cycle potential participants are being screened and reviewed. We're currently looking at 16 inmates to participate. The outpatient treatment services, DOC prisoners, detainees, and inmates are offered a similar treatment, out-treatment services for individuals experiencing substance abuse. Furthermore, per executive order, Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center is responsible for all drug and alcohol treatment and mental health services for DOC prisoners. Both RSAT and the outpatient services, that's handled by Guam Behavioral. Trades program. In collaboration with Guam Trades Academy, the prerequisite suite of classes, core curriculum, is offered at DOC, generally for no charge to inmates. This is made possible by the use of Guam Trade Academy certified inmate instructors. Additionally, via grants received from GIDA and the Lieutenant Governor's Office, over 40 inmates were able to complete the core curriculum course since 2020. In-house education, provided in coordination with Guam Community College to provide GED preparatory courses for inmates of the department. Additionally, the Casework and Counseling Services Division of DOC currently offers additional correspondence courses such as Stress Management, Philosophy of the Week, What If, and Creative Writing courses, all designed to get the prisoners, inmates, and detainees thinking. Additionally, we are providing life skills and financial management program. Let it be noted, this division is currently operated by 5 personnel. 1 social worker will be separating this Friday, so we are in need of additional social workers. The social workers are trained to conduct evidence-based cognitive intervention programs that provides thought process changing skills for inmates. Like the shortage of security personnel, they are also short-staffed to effectuate these programs.
Okay, so from 2020 to 2022, some of the notable accomplishments, we completed DOC master plan. We renovated the perimeter towers at the main facility, renovation of the Guam Behavioral and Health and Wellness Annex, which is Post 7, and renovation of Post 5. We have COVID-19 policies and mitigation plans, which were successful during the pandemic. The renovation of the Hagåtña Detention Facility and the Federal Detention Facility down in Ganya. The new inmate phone system, which is also referred to as PayTel. Internal Affairs Intelligence Unit established. We procured mattresses. We built a new supply room down at the Hagåtña Detention Facility, and we had a community service equipment that was donated from the governor's office. Ongoing projects. We have the Adult Correctional Management Information System that's currently ongoing right now to be implemented. We have the fire alarm system and the fire sprinkler system funded by DOI funding. We have the Guam Trades Academy, TBN, Second Chance, the renovation of Post 18, architect services for the new prison, air conditioning upgrade at the Hagåtña facility, prisoner commissary, internet infrastructure upgrade, and we have the K-9 procurement and opiate settlement funds. That concludes our presentation. We're open for questions now from all the senators.
Thank you, Mr. Carbolito. Great presentation. I guess we'll just start. You know, I've been very fortunate to have a good relationship with a lot of corrections officers, and so they've been giving me some information ahead of this hearing. And one of the things that is really concerning is the number of hours that the corrections officers are working. And I'm hearing, and if you could actually verify this, any officers pull more than 16 hours last week?
Yes, that's correct, Senator.
Do you have a report?
We monitor that every pay period. I get update reports on those overtime hours or hours, total hours worked.
Right.
I recently put out a directive to instructing or directing the warden, and
Where's the warden?
he's excused for today.
Is he on administrative leave?
No, he's not.
Okay.
So
What's the excuse?
he just asked to be excused today. He had something, he had a prior engagement. And I excused him.
Okay.
So there is records or documents that I see every week that's sent to me, and it does indicate the hours worked by corrections officers. And like I said, I put a directive out stopping anyone from working past 16 hours.
When did you put the directive out?
As soon as I was informed of the information and was privy to the reports.
So,
It was already, all the reports were already implemented prior to my assuming duty there.
so when, just refresh my memory, when did you come back on the job?
I think I've been on the job about a month now,
About a
close
month.
to a month.
So you put out a
March.
directive when, because if you put out a directive and we had officers pulling 16 hours last week, so did you put out a directive after last week or prior to?
No, I was made aware that it was still being violated.
So you
And
put out a
we-
directive and no one,
Well, it was still being violated, but for different reasons. And we're looking into that right now.
right.
Yeah,
What about 20 hours? I'm hearing some officers have pulled 20 hours.
That's accurate.
How many?
A handful sometimes.
So how do you manage the officers that you have? Why are they working such long shifts?
That's a great concern, of course, because, and of course, liability issues is my greatest concern, right? Safety of the officer while on duty. We all know that, as human beings, we can only function to a certain extent, right?
Right.
And that's a big concern to me. However, it doesn't preclude the fact that we are short-staffed, and that's the bottom line that we're faced with. We have officers that call in emergency leave, AWOL sometimes. I've heard all those justifications, when I ask, and we're still getting some of those sick leave. So these are all last minute, things that we have to deal with. And with the short staff, with people already having their regular shifts, right? It's hard to pull from elsewhere. We do have a recall roster, an operations plan that I asked my staff to come up with, and it was recently implemented just last week also to address this. And that's recalling officers in that are 8 to 5, like internal affairs, sort to cover down. So those are all the mitigation measures that we put into place, but for some reason, it's not being
I mean, you're the director, right?
read.
Yeah, so what's the reason?
Well, like I said, I'm just being informed of these things just happening again. So we're looking into it right now. We're currently looking into it.
Was this a challenge that you faced in your previous stint as director?
No,
No. Okay, so in your estimation, you've been on the job a month, have the shortages gotten worse?
yes, I left the Department of Corrections with close to 200 officers. I hired over about 70 officers when I first took the helm, and we were way over 200 when that's when I left.
Right.
When I came back, that's when we're now at 153.
Right. So 153,
153.
current, and you're saying you need over 300.
Yes,
So you're about 50% staffed.
that's correct.
Right. So you have officers working 24 hours, correct?
20 hours, 20 plus hours,
Right.
some of them. We have a handful, and like I
16.
said, there's different,
Right.
justifications, emergency.
So there's no other option? There's no way to manage that? You just don't have enough people? Is that what you're saying?
Well, we're looking into it right now, again, what those justifications were. And like I said, just a few to mention, emergency calls, sick leave, AWOL, you know, we mentioned earlier in our presentation, we have officer burnout that we're dealing with too. So, you know, there's a lot of factors, you know, to this problem that we're dealing with right now.
Right, yeah. I mean, you mentioned in your presentation, it's not the pay, it's not just about the pay,
That's
because, right, we're giving 50%
That's right.
combination of different hazard, retention, law enforcement. But, I mean, when you just look at the numbers, you have 153 corrections officers, 820 inmates. That sounds like a very dangerous situation for both the corrections officers and the inmates and detainees.
That's correct.
How dangerous is it?
I think we are in a precarious and dangerous situation, yes, for officer safety.
And let's talk a little bit about the, go ahead. Go ahead.
Which one?
Were you going to say something?
No.
Okay.
It's okay.
The SORT, Special Operations, were they moved to the parole office in Nagano? Are they going to be moved?
No, not that I'm aware of. They're probably divided. They have one up, we have SORT up at the main facility, and we have SORT assigned down to Hagana Detention.
Sir?
Go ahead.
We're going to go ahead and we're working on moving a part of the team there as a quick reaction force for the Hagana facility in case they do need the extra assistance there as far as the officers is concerned, because of the they also have an influx of detainees that are there.
Right.
They need the added security.
I'd also like to recognize my colleagues, Senator Joanne Brown, Senator Roy Kanata. And I know they have questions too. I got a whole bunch of questions, but I guess we'll go ahead and just round robin it. Senator Lujan, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering if we can jump in some of the, yes.
Yeah.
Sir, Director, you said we're in a pretty dangerous situation at this point, officer?
If you look at it at face
Sure,
value,
sure,
right?
yeah.
I mean, common sense will tell you,
Sure.
right? that-
Well, you
that-
have the
that
staff
would
now
be-
that you were, or
right,
that you need, yeah,
right.
yeah.
Just the numbers itself,
Yeah.
right? But we're managing.
Okay.
We're doing the best we can with what we have. We're
Okay.
managing, and we're still operating.
Okay. So if you had, I mean, between one and five being the most critical need that you have, where would you place, I mean, in regards to the danger at this point? 1 and 5? 5 being
We're
the
probably
highest?
we're probably still at 3.
At 3, so you're in mid.
We can.
Pretty optimistic there, sir.
Yeah. We're managing.
Yeah.
We're managing with what we have, and we're able to. We just need to work harder at finding all the solutions. That's all. And I'm confident that my team here, we're able to find those solutions. And I'm working hard. The very first thing I did when I first took over, when I first came back, when I made the assessment and I saw the numbers, was I went straight down to DOA the following day. Okay?
Right.
That's why we have this recruitment process, this testing that's going on right now as we speak. I went down there myself and I spoke to management there and I made it happen.
Wow.
Okay?
Yeah.
So I'm finding all the different ways to work with what we have, what we're trying to get on board, and it's moving. The process is moving, help is on the way, and everybody knows that.
Yeah, it's just frustrating because I remember meeting with the late director, with Major Anton here, and it doesn't sound like any progress was made with the Department of Administration. They had I wrote a letter to Ed Byrne, and then he responded by biting my head off. But, I mean, it's clear there's a backlog at the Department of Administration. I mean, it is so bad that you are coming to the people's house and asking us to let you outsource your hiring to a private entity. Are you not asking us to allow you to do that?
If that is a possibility, like I said, we're looking at all the alternative solutions.
Yeah, that's why, I mean,
Right.
it's hard for me to sit across from you and believe that, you know, you're working on these solutions with DOA when you're clearly saying that it's not working and you're asking us to, I've never heard of a private company handling government of Guam hiring.
Well, it's an option, Senator. I'm just saying that's an option. We're doing with what we have right now, that's the current process, and I'm moving it. It's moving.
Let me ask you this, sir. That being said as well, and if you're looking at that option, and I'm sure it's not the best option that you're looking at,
Right.
but if you get to the point where you're at 4 or maybe even 5, and possibly at times you hit those numbers, and you go to the governor and say, we're in an emergency situation, could she not mobilize, say, maybe the National Guard to help you in the interim? To be able to take care of some of the needs, because you're asking. I mean, you're looking at the fact possibly outsourcing the guard service, but in the interim, we have a National Guard that possibly could be mobilized to be able to do that, but it'd have to be at your request to the governor's office to be able to do something like that in the interim. I mean, we have that built in.
That's another option, and that's even been talked about even way back, even before I came in, right? This situation, it's, it fluctuates, right? Even when I first got in the last time, and my predecessors can tell you, okay, it hasn't changed up there too much, okay? We're dealing with a dilapidated facility, a 20, 30-year-old facility, right? And we have officers, right, that come in, even though I brought in 70 the last time I was, here, we lose them, right? Because there's greener grass elsewhere. I mean, not everybody is built to be a corrections officer. I can even say that not everybody's built to be a police officer, okay? It's not everyone can do that type of job. It's a dirty job, to be honest with you. And I've worked both sides, okay, of the aisle. So I can honestly tell you that if you look at the job description and what these guys, have to do and what they're exposed to, then that's telling for you. It takes a special person to do this type of job.
Right, yeah, and it's clear that some of them are not up to the task. Can we, if you could give us any more information on the recent case that was reported in the media, wherein a corrections officer had smuggled in contraband? I believe he was trying to bring in, this happens all the time, they're trying to bring in food for somebody in the prison, which first of all, are corrections officers allowed to bring in food? Like, let's say my primo's locked up and I know a CO, hey, I made some baluta and it's cut in pica, and can you bring it in and deliver it? Is that allowed?
No, Senator, no. The answer is no. And for the record, I'm not at liberty to talk about that case. It's currently under investigation,
yeah.
and you know that every
Well, I mean, we could talk about a lot of other cases because it seems to be a recurring issue. I'd also like to recognize Senator Frank Blas Jr., our minority leader. So let's talk about the other cases, right? I know you can't talk about that one, but why is this a recurring problem at the Department of Corrections? Do you think there's, corrections officers smuggling in drugs and chewing tobacco and...
Again, it deals with the type of job that you're faced with, right? These guys are trained when they first come in as recruits, but the first thing that they tell you, in training is, the second you say yes, right, to any little thing that an inmate or a detainee or a prisoner, offers, right, then you're stuck. You're stuck with that yes, okay? And, it sometimes it's influential, some of these inmates, they have the criminal minds, right? They can get the best out of you, right? That's all they do, is they spend all their time thinking of and plotting ways to get their ways with some of these officers. And some of the officers are vulnerable, right? So you have vulnerability, right? Not all of them are built the same way. So you're gonna have a few that fall through the cracks. I mean, nobody's perfect, right? Some officers will fall through the cracks and go down that road. And like I said, yes, it's happened in the past. And it's nothing new. It's gonna continue to happen probably, right? In any prison, not just Guam. It's not isolated to Guam.
Can you talk about the warden? So I understand that the warden is the subject of yet another sexual harassment complaint.
Again, Senator, that's under
Right.
investigation.
Yeah, but
and
you excused him for the night, so I'm wondering, is he still on the job?
He is.
So
Yes.
if he was put on administrative leave when the first complaint was made, is there a reason why he's
There's-
still on the job this time?
There's different circumstances and facts to every case, okay? And that's why, you just have to make that decision based on those circumstances and facts. I've consulted with GPD Internal Affairs, okay? And they have not given me a reason to put him on administrative leave. And based on what I read about the case, I don't see a need right now to do that unless GPD tells me otherwise.
Is he, does he come into contact with his accuser while on the job?
No, I've given the direction to my deputy here to ensure that the warden is directed to stay away from the complainant. And at the same time, I've spoken recently to the complainant, and she assured me that she's okay and she's comfortable with the work environment that she's in right now, pending the investigation.
Can we go back to the special operations team? So how many are now stationed at Agatna?
So right now, they're just setting up the office space plus our newly renovated space up on top for a classroom, right? So we're getting these recruits coming in. What I plan on doing is providing at least 2 sort operators there on a daily basis throughout their interim through their hours. 2
How
down.
many total sort officers are there, sir?
There's 14 total.
14,
So every shift you'll have at least 6 to 7 operators, including their commander. So at least during the daytime, you're going to have 3 operators there at Agana.
And how many at Manilao?
Mingilao, you would probably have 4.
Or there's 600 population of Manilao, right? How many at Agatna, inmates and detainees?
What was the latest on that?
About 200 right now.
200 at Agatna? Sounds crowded. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of calls from inmates and detainees' families talking about we're looking at, is this accurate? 4 to 5 to a cell?
Yes, sir. Agana, is it not on? No, I think it's on. Hello? Yes. Sorry. Agana should really only have about 130. Right now, we're pushing 200. So there's some cells with 4 people in it. We do try to move to Manila, as often as we can, but even Manila is overcrowded too. Again, we went from 680 in January straight up to 820 today. And, doesn't seem like those numbers are going to go down anytime soon. So it is a struggle.
Yeah, I talked to a lady who told me that her son is sleeping on the floor because there's not enough mattresses. You say in this report you procured 120. How many more do you need? And why are we asking for donations? You don't have a budget?
We do, but the procurement process is, it takes a little bit longer.
Do you have a procurement officer?
We just do our procurement through our administrative services officer. She's
Have
the
you
one
had
that
all
does
the
all our
modules?
procurement.
Have you had all the modules? 1, 2, and 3. Okay. But back to the number per cell. Is that accurate? So 4 to 5 at Agatna?
In some cases, yes.
How about Manila? A little different setup, but
Yeah, it's a little different setup in Manila. The domes, for example, we have 3 domes that are occupied. Post 6, of course, is fully. Post 5, all of them, most of them have 2 to a cell. Some may have 3, but it just depends on what unit. Post 6, for example, can only take 1 per cell because that's a max unit, so there's only 1 there. But yeah, it's pretty crowded all over, and we're trying to find space. And other thing too, Senators, sometimes too we have to worry about conflicts, right? So crime partners are testifying. So it's it's daily a musical challenge trying to move people around the prison from Manila to Agana and back and forth because our numbers are just so high right now, you know. And so I did have a meeting with the chief prosecutor a couple days ago, and I just reminded her that, you know, is there anything you can do on your side to take a look at all these guys that you're holding? Most of it is our detainee population. Our inmate population has pretty much been stable, but it's the detainee population that went up pretty fast.
Right.
And you know, they said they would look at it, but we haven't got anything back yet from them.
Well, so the severe, would you categorize the overcrowding as severe? How about 1 to 5? Let's go to the 1 to 5. 1 to 5, 5 being civil rights violation.
I wouldn't call it severe right now. Maybe, again, 3. We still have posts up there. We have an extra dome that we can still utilize, right? And then we also have some posts that we can open up that are not being utilized, and we're renovating some posts. So, yes, we're overpopulated, but we can manage.
Would you agree with that assessment, Major? I don't want to put you on the spot, but you know, I've become pretty aware of the overcrowding situation, and with all due respect, it doesn't sound like a 3 to me.
Well, you know, we are doing our best to manage every day. We do have post 18 that's being renovated, and so when that is done, we'll move people from the dome up there. Then we'll have a dome that we could use. We are in the process of trying to purchase more mattresses. In August, we purchased 120, and again, because the numbers went up so fast, we're trying to purchase another 100 and some mattresses and bunk beds. We need bunk beds too, because, you know, for the domes at least. We're trying to get the aircon repaired. There's an aircon there that needs to be repaired. So we are, you know, doing our best to try to move this along. But the procurement process, you know, it just takes a while to go through those steps, getting all the quotes, and it takes a couple weeks. And our numbers are just like every day.
Right.
You know, they
yeah.
just keep
so
going
that's why I
and
don't
going.
agree that
So,
it's a 3. I
yeah.
mean, if you're waiting on renovation of a dome and you continue to get more people coming into the prison, it's only going to get worse. So again, would you agree with this assessment that the overcrowding is not severe?
In my 29 years there, this is the worst I've seen it as far as the numbers.
So
Other than when the Chinese came in, but we had a different area for those Chinese things. But I probably go a 4. You know.
So could you say it again in your how many years?
29 years there. This is the most numbers I've seen of local prisoners, other than of course the Chinese when they came in here. But yeah, it's pretty, you know, it's pretty crowded.
In your opinion, is there a state of emergency that exists at the Department of Corrections and the Agatna lockup? Please answer honestly.
I would, based on the safety of the staff and the safety of the inmates and the safety of, you know, the people that work there and the visitors, you know, I would be almost, you know, cautious. I mean, I'm inclined to declare a state of emergency for the prison.
So you believe that the Department of Corrections is currently in a state of emergency, although undeclared by the governor?
I mean, I could see them declaring emergency, that it could be justified.
Wouldn't be a stretch.
I don't think so.
Right.
I mean, we're getting there. And if these numbers keep going up within a month or two, you know, we could be up at 850. I don't know what the threshold would be for that, but I don't see the numbers going down anytime soon. So.
Right.
You got to remember and take into consideration there are people also that get released, okay? So we have people that get confined, and we also get daily releases, okay? So those are things that, you know, you need to consider also.
I'm going to ask you the same question. Do you believe in the month that you've been here? Because you said we know that you had a previous stint. You came back. You said it's worse. Do you believe that a state of emergency exists at the Department of Corrections?
No,
No?
I don't believe that right now. It's manageable, and we're doing what we can with what we have. When we get there, I'll be sure to inform my bosses when we get to that point.
You know, and the reason why we're asking this is not to chastise anyone in the jobs that you do. We want to help. And if it is, in fact, a state of emergency, we want to make sure that we get you all the resources and we make sure it's proclaimed. You know, I mean, we don't want, you know, when DOE came in here and they were just kind of dancing around certain issues, and look at where they're at this point. And so we're trying to get you the resources to help, and not just this body, because it has to come from the executive branch that will really bring you the help, and, you know, with our assistance as well. So we appreciate the honesty. Call it as it is.
Yeah, please leave the politics at the door.
Yeah, call it as it is. It's not a reflection of your jobs, and you're doing, you know, and we don't want officers, I mean, a state of emergency based on officer endangerment. We don't want anyone hurt, maimed, killed at that, for that fact. And so, that being said, we appreciate, again, it's not to chastise any one of you. It's to help you, again, do a better job or do the best job that you can. And we understand, of course, you have a more aggressive AG now. And that being said, every day that goes by, you're probably going to see the numbers increase, because he's not going to pull back in his aggressiveness. It's only going to rise.
All these things that I've made, as far as my assessment is concerned, has been, briefed with Adelup. Okay, so they're aware of what's going on, and like I said, once we get to that point, I will make it known to them.
But with all due respect, Mr. Carbolito, when I asked the question, is there a state of emergency that exists at the Department of Corrections? All the staff back here were going like this. Major Anton Uggan, who's been on the job for 29 years, said yes. I understand the pressure you're under and the politics at play here, but we just need an honest conversation so that we can do our part to assist you, because I don't think the corrections officers are going to appreciate you calling these conditions manageable when clearly they are not. If you put out a directive that says don't work 16 hours and we still have COs working 16 hours, it just does not sound manageable to me. When we have 4 to 5 inmates today needs to a cell, when I'm getting calls from parents that their son is sleeping on the floor, when it's a lot, sir.
Understood.
I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Senator Lujan. Do you mind if Senator Brown? Senator Brown, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Certainly good evening to all of you. And Director Carbolito, you're certainly having to take on quite a tremendous challenge. And you know, the last time we met was with your former director that passed, Robert Camacho, and certainly I'm sure that's an adjustment for all of you to lose your director unexpectedly. You know, being in this process of the government all these years, I'm a little taken aback, because it's almost department after department. Basic operations that used to be standard. It almost didn't matter back in the day who the director was. The director could be a complete idiot. And there were some. And I can say that having been a former director myself. But the operations of the department ran. Not to the degree of now that we're seeing, you know, the curtains are being taken down. Same thing with Department of Education. I mean, we pour more money, and we're getting less and less and less in terms of the productivity that we expect, and the oversight should not require from the legislature. I mean, we're a policy-making branch. We're not an operational branch as it is with the administration. We don't have the hands-on, though many of us have had the experience of running major operations in this government. So it's a little difficult to hear this. I understand, you know, I've never worked at Department of Corrections. I did spend some time up there when I was at the University of Guam working on your conservation program, so I've been there working and, you know, taken aback sometimes of how young some of these prisoners are, because you're going, wow, they have everything ahead of them, and why would they want to do something that would have them end up in prison at such a young age? We understand the challenges. This is a tough job. And yet, the outcomes are not getting better. I mean, this most recent arrest of another guard is the same old story. I don't know if someone's just being stupid or they're naive or whatever the case may be, but it's just recycled. It's just another name, the same old scenario. You end up having those that take an oath to uphold their responsibilities as law enforcement officers, and they're the ones that are the conduits to drugs and contraband coming into the prison. And that's really a reflection also on the leadership. Because you just don't, let somebody out and then leave them there, and maybe at some point we check back with them. I mean, it has to be a constant, consistent follow-through and reminder to our people that we have a mission here to do, and we have to make sure that while we understand, and you're right, you got prisoners there all day, got nothing but to do, and they're very creative minds of thinking, how am I going to infiltrate that guy or that lady to get me what I want? The public expectation is that people should feel safe. And as time is going on, we're not feeling any safer out here. We have seen circumstances of prisoners breaking out of prison. We have heard over the years of the revolving door of special people. They get special privileges as prisoners to come and go as they please. This doesn't give us a lot of comfort out in the community. And I'm concerned as we hear your numbers are down. We heard last time that there's efforts, the recruitment efforts were made, and we're waiting for DOA. So can I ask that first question? Where are we with regards to the recruitment? Because I know last year there was an effort to go out and recruit new personnel to come into the agency, and then we were told, oh, it's a Department of Administration. We're waiting for the Department of Administration to process these applicants. So has that moved any further along? Are you able to, I know you've only been there for a very short period of time, but
Yes, Senator.
where are we with regards to that?
Yes, Senator. So, like I mentioned earlier, the day after my assessment with the facilities, I went down to DOA and I spoke to management there because of the shortage of personnel, right, which is the top priority that I believe needed to be done. So, we are currently testing 264 applicants dating back to 2020. And that started April 17, and it's going to run all the way to April 28, which is this Friday. Okay. So the process has started. Testing is being done. Once testing is done and they review the list of eligibles, whoever passed, in other words, and gets on that eligibility list, we'll move from there. So it's going to be another 4 to 6 weeks, probably.
Are those applicants still interested? Because, gosh, 2020 was 3 years ago. I don't know if I needed a job, Gosh, are they going to call me? Do I have a primo at DOC I can get to connect me or what, Do you even know how many of those applicants are still viable?
As of today, so we had 11 out of 40 that showed up to test. And we had 29 that tested prior to that. So, low. The numbers are low as far as applicants showing up to test.
So hopefully you'll be able to get those that applied pass, and hopefully be able to get them. The thing I don't understand, and I worked for 2 governors, and when things are major issues, they get put on the front burner, and those key people get called in, and we don't get asked. And I had one boss, Governor Atta, often, one of the first things he told me is, Joanne, don't tell me what you cannot do. And Joe Atta's a very nice guy. It's when those moments happen, I'm like, oh gosh, okay, he's on top of this. Tell me what you can do. And I've always remembered that in my mind. Don't tell me what you cannot do. The list is long. And resources are never, there's never infinite amount of resources, personnel, all the things we'd love to have. But tell me what you can do with what you have. And all the key department and agencies get called in, and they get told, this is what I need. I need you, DOA, to facilitate, because this is a priority, because the impact to the public safety, which I think we all agree is a critical, if something happens and you don't have enough personnel or another guard gets harmed or killed up there, and I remember, I didn't know Officer Mashburn personally, but I remember I was back in college when that happened. That was really horrifying, of not only that he died, but how he was killed. Can't imagine how devastating that would be for any officer to feel a lack of safety up there because there's just not enough of you. And I understand we've been through the whole issue about, it's not designed as a facility that helps, you guys do your job. It makes it actually more difficult, and why we need to build a new prison. And I don't think any one of us object. We would love to see a new facility, and we like the idea. You guys at least were forthcoming last year. letting us know where it was going to be sited, how it would be designed, what the features are that would be put in place so that you actually would need less personnel, because the facility would be designed to be a much safer location for you and for the detainees and prisoners that are there. So I think that's where the challenge is. I don't leave here, and I'm always looking for comfort, and I don't leave here tonight feeling comfortable with what's been discussed. And I think maybe it really needs to be prioritized of what can be done to facilitate to the point that you are a little more secure, when you have more officers coming in that can actually be hired that work there. I think the idea, if it is, of getting the governor to help facilitate the National Guard is something that gives you some backup so that you're not at such a low level of safety for the safety of your workers and the comfort level of your workers, because I can't imagine that must be an incredibly tough job because you're dealing with other human beings. And yet, right now, I think you're in a very, very precarious situation. It's okay to acknowledge that. I understand the politics of wanting to make everything, you know, all the window dressing look pretty and good, and we're the best thing that happens since sliced bread, and thank God the people of Guam have been waiting for me for so long to walk through the door, because with me, everything's great. But, you know, the realities of where you're at right now, I think we need to acknowledge it. I think we need to put it on the table, and then I think we need to go, okay, what's the next step? What do we need to do to address these concerns? So we're not in constant crisis, or we wait and, you know, the next news story is some major thing happening, or a prison breakout, or officers and staff up there getting injured. You know, we all watch the prison movies, right? It's all very dramatic and interesting, but we don't want to see that happen up there for you and your personnel that's up there. So, I mean, is there something you can feel a sense of urgency in asking the governor, the administration, to prioritize getting support to you in this interim period while you're working on trying to recruit and facilitate, fast track, you know, your hiring process?
And like I mentioned earlier, again, Senator, we are in discussions with the governor's team is also involved with this discussions with DOA. So they are very much involved.
Well, I appreciate all that. I'm sure the public might appreciate all that. But I mean, I think there's a sense of urgency that, you know, rises beyond discussion and actually should be at a point of what is the Get Well plan. What are we putting in place so that we can provide the support, like I said, facilitate the recruitment and procurement of additional resources?
So the discussion is the streamlining of the current hiring process. That's what's going on right now.
Well, just make
and
sure they're
that's,
qualified. We don't want to get
Right.
surprised, yeah.
Right, of course. Right.
We don't need any more of those. Then you also mentioned the issue of procurement. What is your challenge with procurement?
Well, the timeline, you know, that it takes to get things, you know, submitted from submittal, you know, to, you know, the actual action being taken, and, you know, the turnaround period, so to speak.
Was that anything that, I mean, they talked about it early on in the administration last term about trying to facilitate procurement. I don't know that anything's changed.
Again, that's ongoing discussions with the, you know, the governor's team and
Have they given you any
GSA.
directives, solutions, or anything to help? I mean, discussions are great. We can do that all. That's what we do. We get to do that all day. But you on the other side, you actually have to implement. You have to execute.
And I'm doing what I can with what I have right now, the resources that's available to me. And they do understand my situation already. I've brought it up. And so they're working on their end to try and assist me and support whatever I need to do to make things work up.
So we should hope in the near future we're going to hear something that they're actually going to do to assist you. If not, I certainly would request our oversight chair to continue to stay on top of this, because, again, you know, we always want to, like I said, we want to sugarcoat things and make them look and sound better than they are. But in your particular line of work, you know, you can't afford it. You know, you just can't afford it, and I hope that they actually do. I mean, it's on the record now. I think publicly people are going to hear more and more about your situation, and let's hope they prioritize it, because I'm surprised that this discussion is coming from our side of the table. This is something they should have publicly come out and announced and said this is what they're going to do to address it, because I think you're and I'm not there every day. You know, those of you that work there every day, it sounds like you're in a really precarious situation, and I would hate to see anything happen. I don't want to wait till something happens that harms any of you, or even, you know, I mean, I'm sure there's nobody there at the prison because they were good people. They did something that got them there, but by all means, they're still human beings, and we want to make sure for their safety and well-being as well. With that, Mr. Chair, I'll allow our other colleagues to have
Thank-
comments at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Senator Roy Canata?
I'll go ahead and pass it to Senator Blas. I'm okay.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Frank Blas Jr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Kanata, for yielding. Gentlemen, ma'am, thank you for being here today and sitting here intently and listening. Can anybody provide to me, what is your, right, I'm looking at, you currently have 153 officers.
That's correct, Senator.
How many of those officers are on military leave or?
We have some scheduled that are going to be going on military leave. I did write to the TAG to try to, reschedule and, stagger the training dates for those officers or military personnel.
Okay. And so you're looking at, you prospectively need about 150 more officers, or 150. So you need basically just as many officers as you have right now.
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. What's your guard to inmate ratio right now? And I want to make it, we can do this, I don't want to do this at 150 total officers and 820 inmates. I want it per shift. How many officers do you have per shift to take care of 820 inmates or detainees?
Go ahead.
So, right now, for example, Alpha shift in Manila goes from midnight to 12 in the afternoon, 12-hour shift. They currently have 37 officers assigned to that shift. That'll be about 24% of our total manpower, right? 37 of them are assigned to that shift. Now, when you put in RDOs, regular days off, and other, on a daily average, you probably get about 24 officers coming in, 25 officers coming in. Ideally, I would need almost 40 officers to report for work, to cover all the particular posts up there, all the housing units, the perimeter, because we have like 4 outside perimeter areas, the yard, the galley, and all those other areas. And each unit has a different amount of officer requirement. For example, post 6 needs at least 5. There's only 46 inmates in there, so that'll be 1 to 9. If you got 5, right? 5 officers, 1 to 9. Oftentimes, they're only operating with 2.
2 officers?
2 officers, maybe 3. Okay. Some other units, like Post 17, has a population of about 60. They're not as bad as the max unit inmates. They're not as aggressive. So usually 2 would be okay for that. Ideally, 3 officers would be good because they're broken up on 3 cubicles that are not within eye range. So it requires more mobility of the officers moving around. But usually there's only 1 officer there, 1 officer in that unit when there should be like 3. Post 5 has 2 wings. It's like a second max unit. They're Agawat. They have a problem, right? So ideally, I would want 4 there. The max population there is 60. So the inmate to officer ratio kind of changes based on the housing unit. For example, minimum in, we could have 40 up there and 1 officer. Ideally 2, but 1 is okay. 2 is always better. But their behavior is a lot less than what you would, they're easier to manage versus what's at Post 6. And that's just in Manila. Now, Agana is a whole separate issue again because you should have at least almost 10 officers on shift because you have the federal detention on one side, the Agani detention on the other side, and with 200 people, you should have at least 5 per section on duty. Right now, it's probably 3 and 4 or 3 and 2, depending if someone called out sick or something like that. So that's where we have our short numbers. And every day it's a recall, calling in on your day off. Some work more than the 12-hour shift, and that's where they get tired. And that's like the director mentioned. The pay is good, the retention is good, the bonus, the 25% is good, but when you're working by yourself and you're doing the job of 3 officers for 12 hours, 5-6 days a week, that really burns you out with your physically, and then also with your family and so you know, a lot of them, that's probably why they go and look for other jobs. The job is okay itself, but working by themselves causes a lot of burnout, and that's probably why they're leaving. That's why it's so important that we try to recruit and raise up our numbers. And the 300 is because of the design. It's just spread out, right? And when we build a new facility, it'll be more compact, using better technology, cameras, and all these other things that'll be in place. That, you know, 2 officers for 40 to 60 inmates would not be a problem, because you'll have line of sight. You have line of sight, cameras, and all these other things. So I hope I went on, but I hope I answered your question about the ratio. It fluctuates depending on what housing unit you're dealing with.
So your best case scenario here is you got 1 to 9.
That's for post 6.
Post
And
6.
that's because the inmates at post 6, they come out of their cell one at a time, and they have to be handcuffed. And the policy requires 2 officers per 1 inmate when they come out because of their aggressive behavior and stuff. But again, like minimum you know, 1 officer or 2 can watch 40, you know, no problem, right? Because their behavior is not as what's max. So the officer ratio can change per housing unit, you know, but ideally each unit should have 16 and at least 2. You never really want 1 officer by themselves. This is where that contraband stuff starts coming in. When you have 1 officer stuck in a housing unit day after day, and nobody is there to say, hey, what are you doing? Or backing him up. And he feels like, in order to survive, I have to make these deals with these inmates. And like the director said, one time you say yes when you should have said no, you're done. Because all of them now know it, and now you're going to be under that pressure to continue with this, providing little things at a time for your safety, right? And we hire good officers, and they come in, I think, with good intentions, but working with not enough officers, not enough people to sit there and say, hey, what are you doing? No, don't do that. You know, this is how we do it. It leads the officer down this wrong. I'm not making excuses for what the officer did. They know better than what they did, and they're going to pay the consequences for that at some time. But those may be some of the factors of why they come in good, and over the course of the years, they end up doing things bad, you know, and getting in trouble, like what's going on now.
Okay. So recognizing the stress that your officers are going through right now, first of all, I mean, just your 12-hour shifts, is it what, 12 hours, 6 days a week, or?
Their schedule is actually 12 and 5, 12 hours. They end up doing 13 because of briefing, you know, the relief. But some work 6 days a week.
Okay.
Some come in 7 days a week. You know, it's sometimes, you know, we try to give them, we make sure they have a day off. We try to make sure they have at least 1 day off in a week. Okay.
And I can see the management challenge in being able to provide the kind of coverage that's necessary. But you also got, I'm also we're concerned here about the officer's stress, you know, in this situation. Joe, do you guys have access, or do you have on board a staff psychologist?
We did, when I first got there, we had a staff psychologist. That was Dr. Taminglo, but she retired, and we haven't brought back another one. That's because we have Jipwick now that does that services for us.
That you have what?
Jipwick,
Okay.
Guam Behavioral.
Okay. And your officers recognize and know the process of being able to get help without repercussion, should they need it?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Well, I can go more and more to that, but I got a few more questions here. Healthcare. You have your physician, or are you guys paid up with GMH? You guys still owe GMH for services, or what?
Yes, we have a MOA with them.
But do you owe them? I remember at one point in time, yeah, back in the day before we got billions of dollars of federal assistance,
Well, we have a contract, we have an MOA with them, and, you know, we get, there's monies that's appropriated through the budget to pay them.
Joe, the question was, You guys pay,
Not that I'm aware of, not that I'm aware of.
okay.
But we do have medical bills that are, prior obligations.
You do?
We do,
Okay.
from outside vendors.
From outside, but, okay, so with regard to healthcare, not just GMH, there are outside vendors that you still owe
That's correct.
money to. When you say prior year, are we talking just last year, or are we talking many years back?
It's mostly from last year.
Okay. Okay, and there is a plan to be able to satisfy those,
We're trying to work that out right now. I already brought it to the attention of. the front
okay,
office.
yeah, you mentioned this a lot of times, the team, you talk to them or they. Who's them or they? Who do you work with directly in the governor's office?
I report to the chief of staff, of
Oh,
course.
so it's to Mr. Covell.
Mr. Calvo, yes.
Okay, and so he's your direct contact.
That's correct.
Okay, nobody else.
No.
Okay. Your facilities, first off, when's the last time you guys had a public health inspection?
During the pandemic, we constantly had public health there.
But how about now?
I don't know, most recently, I don't know.
And the
I'm
public
not
health
aware.
inspection was based on COVID, right? Back then, during the COVID time? When was the last time you had?
That's correct. To my knowledge, yes.
So,
During
but when's
COVID.
the last time you had a public health inspection? So that they can go around and photograph all the cockroaches and dead rats that you supposedly...
The last time that I'm aware of, like I said, was just in COVID. I'm not aware of any other inspections prior to that. I
Okay,
mean,
what about,
after that?
what about public works inspection? Facility integrity?
I'm not aware of that either, when the last time was.
Okay.
We can get all that information if you still want it.
Okay. First off, are you a correctional or a penal institute?
We're a correctional
You're
facility.
correctional, okay?
Correctional facility.
And are we meeting basically all our mandates as prescribed to be a correctional facility as opposed to penal?
Sir, our facility, unlike others, we're actually a jail, right? We're a detention facility for those detainees and those that are post-conviction, but we're also a correctional facility for those that are convicted. And we do have a medical with the Guam Memorial Hospital, so they handle all the medical side, so that is addressed there. We have Guam Behavioral to do the mental health side of the house. We have some programs for the inmates, and we're creating some programs for the detainees. But again, due to our overcrowding, lack of classrooms, we're working on even trying to get containers brought in as classrooms so that we'll have areas to hold programs and rehabilitation treatment, because one of our activity units that we had, which is called Post 17, that used to be the library and / activity. We used to have classrooms in there. We had to close those off, and now it houses inmates, right, because of our overcrowding. So, once our overcrowding issue is addressed, and a lot more things can happen. But right now, with the overcrowding, it's just pretty hard to kind of do other things at this time. But we do, like I said, we have GED on the presentation. We have some GED classes. Guam Behavioral is giving some classes. We have RSAT that is being done, and that's going to graduate, and we're starting a new one right after that. So we are trying to, give them something. We do have religious services, and so that is opening up. We've opened up limited visitation for the family members, and we've got incoming and other things that are now open for the inmates. Some of the units have recreation time and things like that on the basketball court up there, and these are some of the things that we're trying to do to keep them occupied and busy. Plus, like, our welding shop is open, our maintenance crew inmates are out there doing. So we're coming out of this pandemic, we're trying to get back into there, but a lot of it has to do also with the staff, having the officers to monitor it, because all it takes is one mistake, and we shut everything down again. So,
Yeah.
and those are the things we're trying to do.
Okay, very well. Thank you very much. I appreciate the answers. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Blas. When you talked about the overcrowding, is there a certain number of inmates who qualify as low risk, or otherwise eligible for any type of release. Have you had any conversations like this with the toughest AG on crime?
No, Major was the last person that made contact with the AG's office. So, of course, if they're being detained for misdemeanors, right, or less, we would prefer that they be, released, right? But that's up to the courts too,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Can we go back to the warden? And so I just learned that the individual who made the complaint is under his supervision. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Okay. And so you are comfortable with allowing the warden to remain on the job while the person who is accusing him of sexual harassment works under him?
Senator, like I said, I'm not privy to discuss the details
I know,
of that because
but
it's
I'm
under
just saying,
investigation,
sir-
and I don't want to jeopardize the
Yeah,
investigation.
but I'm just saying that this is the second complaint in as many years, and the first time he was put on admin leave. This time he wasn't, and this time it's someone under his watch. Last time it was an individual with the Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center, so I'm just asking.
And that would be my answer, Senator.
So you're comfortable with it?
Yes.
Okay. And I also wanted to ask about the K-9. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So we're gonna want to implement the program. I want to try and get the unit up to 4 canines. These canines will be capable of detecting narcotic odor, cell phone and electronics, which is part of the contraband, major contraband in there. Also with tracking. And we can also use the tracking canine for our law enforcement partners out here in the street if they need the assistance. We can come out, assist them with locating either a suspect or a missing person. That's part of their skill level. And one of the last areas that they're trained in is protection and apprehension. With these canines, it's going to be a really big deterrence as far as contraband is concerned, right? So anybody coming into the compound is subject to search. With these canines, they can help us mitigate the contraband issue by using their detection skill and certification to get us the target location and giving us the PC or the probable cause to do our search. We can also use the canine also for in and when, let's say there's a riot or a fight or just somebody that's one of the inmates that are just out of control or anything like that. It'll stop us, or not stop us, but it'll give us the option to use this canine to have the inmate or the subject follow the orders of the officer, rather than use a less than lethal round or use pepper or even impact weapons or even getting really physical with them. He'll follow the orders just by seeing that canine there, If you don't go by what the officer's ordering you to do, get on the ground, don't resist, just go with what we're telling you. Canines can do that to also help with safety for the inmates and the officers that are in there. Yeah.
Is there a facility for canines at Mingilao or Hagåtña?
Not right now, no.
Okay, so is there a cost and also a timeline for implementation of this program?
Right now the school there's several classes coming up this year, and the earliest right now is August. So it's been already about a week. We've been working on the procurement process also for identifying the funding for the canine. So we're looking at getting one canine, a handler for certification, and 2 instructors. We need a primary and an alternate. So it doesn't stop us just there as well, right? Because we can also help out with the other agencies that have canines, keep them up on their certification as well, and then we can also call on them for assistance if we do need it. These other canines are narcotic and tracking canines. We can use them also. So we can eventually get together, train, and we have to got to train every day, right? Continue on with that mission. Continue on with the certification until we get to our annual certifications. There's many things that we can use with this canine. I mean, it goes from employee searching, visitors, vendors that come into the compound, open area searching too as well, because we have got farms out there. We have different buildings that the inmates do work at. You never know, somebody could be coming in through the jungle at late or earlier mornings, dropping something off. Get our canines out there just to sniff open area. We could find something. Some people would think it would be a long shot, but with the canine's abilities, it's possible.
Are you a canine handler?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I see. Major, why have we not used canines at the Department of Corrections before? Or have we?
We did have canines a few years back. We had 2. We got them from Customs, and we had 2 officers trained. But the dogs, again, the lifespan of the canine is not as, you know, so they were retired eventually.
Right.
And then the 2 officers that we had, one passed away and the other resigned and left. So, you know, that kind of just shut down the program. And then, you know, the maintenance costs and all those other things just weren't budgeted to continue the program. And so it kind of just, when the dog retired, the last one, it just shut down.
So how do we plan to avoid what he just talked about from happening again? Yeah.
So, like maintenance costs for per canine, realistically, you can annually you can support one canine anywhere from 15 to 20,000, and that's you know, with vet care, emergency care, medicines, dental. Believe it or not, they need the dental, food. So about 15 to 20,000 a year per canine.
Wow.
Yeah.
We can't even buy mattresses at the Department of Corrections.
Well, let me take that back.
Right.
15 to 20 for 2.
Right.
So it's manageable. I mean, if we can identify the funding for it.
Is this going to take away officers that we already don't have? Because it sounds like we're severely short.
Actually, the plan, because of the nature of the work that that handlers need to understand when operating with this canine, one of the prerequisites is to be a certified SORT officer, part of the SORT team, understanding the tactics and what the handler is going to be doing on a daily as a handler with this canine. So we be getting an officer from the unit that's established already. Yeah.
And you mentioned training opportunities in August. Who would be attending these training opportunities?
You mean as far as getting the certification and all that?
Right, yeah.
Okay, so the handler must go there, bond with the canine that's chosen already. Because during that time they get there, around a couple of days of that, it's the master instructor looks at the handler and the canine to see if first they need a bond, and then they start training together. I mean, I've seen it where a new handler will get to a canine, the canine just does not want to work with him, right? I mean, they're living beings. It's just like nature or something. I don't know.
So who's going to go?
It's going to be, we haven't chosen a handler yet. According to what I got now for instructor training or instructor / evaluator, I have a primary and a alternate. So I have the commander for the SORT team, and I will be going as well.
Are you going to receive the training too?
Yes, the certification, yes.
I see. I find that just a little interesting because you were a unclassified deputy director, right?
Correct.
which means you won't be here. I mean, you know, we don't know what's going to happen in a few years, but do you think that training would be better spent on maybe like tenured classified employees because they're going to be with the institution?
Yeah, true. I'm actually in discussions with the master instructor and the owner of the school right now because he did offer 2 evaluator trainer courses for the price of 1 for our agency. And I asked him, I said, hey, why are you, I mean, it's nice that you're doing this, and that's his prerogative. He owns the place. So he says, you know what? My thing is, as a master instructor, I know you're a handler. I trained you. I've seen the missions you've been on already, so I have I guess he's comfortable with what I've been doing so far since I've been trained. He offered to give 2 slots and helping us out by paying just for 1 instructor course.
This was handled through procurement?
No, this is what he's telling me.
He's giving you a 2-for-1.
Yeah, like I mean the only and I asked him. I said, well, and his reason for it is because I'm a handler already, and I can offer the experience to aid with the primary instructor or evaluator. I mean, it's something that I can still have talks with him and say, hey, you know what? Yes, there is we can have a classified employee do that. We can have a SORT officer push on and take this role as the evaluator, the second evaluator. But I had that discussion with him, and that was like a week ago. So he's all the way out in Ohio. So sometimes he calls me at 2, or he'll give me a text or something like that. Give me some correspondence on the courses and the new updates on the laws and stuff like that. Yeah.
Mr. Carbolito, so we talked a bit about the corrections officers, and you called the situation that they're under very manageable, correct?
Correct. That's my assessment.
Yeah, it's your assessment. So what about inmates and detainees? Do you think we're in danger of being sued for any kinds of violations of civil rights or
Not
honest
that I'm
assessment?
aware of. Since I got back, not that I'm aware of.
Would you say that it's manageable?
Again, based on my assessment, it's still manageable.
Major, I don't want to pitch you against your director, but just an honest assessment, if you don't mind, because 4 to 5 inmates per cell. Again, I have to say I don't believe that that's manageable. I mean, it's gotten so severe that the chief of staff is involved. So I just again want realistic answers if you could provide one, sir.
Well, Senators, with the overcrowding, of course, 4 to a cell is not the ideal situation. Other things we could do to alleviate that is their time on fresh air and some other thing, visitation, recreation, other things like that. Usually civil rights start coming to an issue when we're unable to provide the medical services in a timely manner, dental, and things like that. Right now, we're working with GMH to address all those kind of concerns when the medical and issues and overcrowding. But again, I'm not sure what the magic threshold would be. I mean, do we have to be at 850, 890? Right now, with the director, we're working on it. We're managing it. But if the numbers don't go down or continue to rise in the near future, I think we should be really concerned about potential lawyers, attorneys, especially for the detainees,
Right.
filing paperwork in court. But again, we are doing our best to find other ways to, avoid those situations.
So 820, 600 at Mingilao. Again, if you could refresh my memory, how many prisoners was the Mingilao facility designed to hold?
Well, those numbers, the beds too it's not number you can just pull out, because with the domes, for example, the domes could probably be about 60 people per dome. Other issues that rise with that is the bathroom services, the container, the bathrooms. Is there enough toilets and showers? So, I mean, we can always put a tent in the yard, like the military tent, and put cots out there and have more with the fence, but, you know, do we have all the resources, the porta potties and the officers, and, you know, how is this going to affect the meal services for the catering, and can GMH properly, now can the one doctor properly see all the patients that are requesting sick call? Because let's face it, most of them do have medical issues. Right. So what's kind of saving us right now a lot is the domes, you know, because that number can fluctuate. But like post 6 it's a finite number that you can put in there. Same with post 5 and 4 and post 2. You can't do anything else. I mean, they only have like post 2, 14 cells. That's all you got is 14 cells. And so the magic number, it's kind of, you know, hard to put on it, because again, with the domes, you can put 60, maybe 80, but we would have to go and get porta potties and some other things to support.
But we don't know if you guys have the proper toilet to prisoner ratio, because we haven't had a public health inspection, right, or a Department of Public Works inspection of the facility. Let me ask you, if the feds were to come and take a tour of Manila or Hagatna, do you think they would say it's manageable?
Well, the feds, sir, the only ones we deal with is the U.S. Marshals and Alpha Block at the federal detention facility. They're two-man cells. So the feds, when they come in, they're only worried about basically how their federal detainees are being treated, and so we don't have an issue with them. Their numbers are quite low, actually, probably 20, 25 federal detainees, 7 immigration. So that's their only concern. The rest is local detainees, inmates, contempt of court, warrant of arrest, probation violators, parole violators. So we have a whole gamut of classifications within the two facilities. So I can't speak to what the feds will do if they come in here for a different purpose other than keeping track of their federal detainees.
Right, yeah. Because they've toured the facility before, right, under your 29-year career?
Yeah, and they even came in, I believe it was 2019 or 2020, they actually came in, and but again, their numbers were a little higher, but you know, we made some adjustments, and we responded and did some renovations and stuff. But as far as, like I said, what they would do if they came in, and I don't know. I don't know what they would say. Right.
Sir?
Yeah, so we did have an issue with with HDF, the federal, or FDF, the federal facility down there, when I first came on board. But we dealt with the issues, right? We renovated the space down there. We fixed everything that to their satisfaction, and that went away.
Okay.
Okay.
But we've continued to see the number of prisoners grow. When was that?
Not at the like the major said, not at the federal detention facility.
Okay. I mean, Department of Justice, that kind of thing, the kind of trouble we got into before. That's what I'm talking about when I say if the feds came to pay a visit.
No, we haven't got anything.
Right.
The feds probably would get involved only when the attorneys start getting involved and they start
Right,
bringing
and I'm
these
hearing,
issues.
I just got to tell you, I'm hearing grumblings, right? I told you I'm getting a lot of calls from parents of prisoners, and not really painting a pretty picture. But, of course, we've got to hear both sides.
Right.
Right. So we'll just go over to Senator Lujan. Senator Lujan, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Director, how often does the Chief of Staff visit the prison?
He was just recently up there, not too long ago, after the passing of, my predecessor.
Okay.
Camacho.
I mean, does he realize the state that you're in at this point with procurement and things of that nature?
He's been briefed.
Okay, he's been briefed. What does he say in that briefing? I mean, does he consider that? Does he consider the situation very concerning?
It's concerning, of course. I'm not going to sit here and say it's not. right? And
No,
I-
no,
and I
but
never
does
said
he
that.
consider it, does he
Well,
consider it
we both
concerning?
agree that it is concerning.
very
Yes,
concerning.
Yes.
Okay. That being the point, very concerning, what was his solution to a very concerning situation?
Those are all under discussion. They're aware of what's going on, and they're under discussion with the team down there on what we need to do overall, recruitment, retention issues,
And the
procurement
rea-
issues.
And the reason why I'm saying that, because, again, if we were in a state of emergency, okay, and we heard tonight that there's a possible of endangerment of officers, procurement situations, and the reason why I'm trying to, again, get to the point here is because at a state of emergency, we can help solve all these things. Procurement situation, endangerment of officers, and all that. We can help solve those things at a proclamation of that. That means they're going to have to come in and make sure that they give you what is needed. Procurement, you can sole source based on that. And that's why again we're trying to get to that, and I know they, you know, officers are not necessarily playing politics, but they are. They are. And I know they don't want themselves to look like under their watch, this is what's happening. But what we're hearing tonight is really what's happening. And so, we want to help. I mean, from what I'm hearing tonight, if I was in that situation, if I was a speaker and they were off island, I would definitely proclaim an emergency, state of emergency, so we can get you guys what is needed. I'll do that to Department of Education as well. You talked about K-9. What would the unit cost on an annual basis once you get? Let me start off with, what would your startup cost be for the K-9 unit? And you're saying you're going to start off with one officer and one K-9 dog? Is that what you're, or and an alternate, right? A K-9 officer and an alternate, and then one dog? So what would the startup cost be, roughly?
For one K-9 handler and one K-9 and two instructors, 24,600.
Okay, and
Yes,
that's with the maintenance of the dog too?
No, that's about 10 to 15.
Okay, so you're close to 30 something?
Yeah.
Something like, okay. And the annual maintenance of that?
10 to
But that's the
15.
start, that's an annual maintenance?
Yes, 10
Okay.
to 15,000. Yeah.
10 to 15?
For
okay.
one.
For one, okay. So basically with two, that'll be double that, right? Double that, okay. And that makes a lot of sense. That makes definitely a lot of sense. And these are the things, again, I mean, we can look at it and say, leche, that's a lot of money. But you are a prison. You run 24 hours a day. You never close, regardless of the situation. You never close, and you can have that. So it's a tool. It's like a doctor's stethoscope. You need it. So, I mean, I fault you now for it, and I would never line item veto anything like that. It has to do with tools and mechanisms that you will need for operations. Absolutely. Going to the new prison, and I wasn't here for the the previous legislature for the discussion of where the new prison was going to be built, or the where same location.
Yes, Senator, when we
Okay.
did our master plan, we realized the challenges if we tried to put the footprint in another village or somewhere else. So within our own footprint in the Manila facility, we have a vast amount of land already. It's unused. So we've designed our master plan that it would go in, certain areas been identified for the master plan. And the master plan is actually an 80-year master plan. And what we're trying to do is at least it's a 10 phase.
So, okay, you're in stage one, so you're stage one of 10 stages, basically?
Well,
Or,
phase 1 through 10 is the housing units, but right
Okay,
now we're
okay.
still in the architectural portion.
okay,
And like I said earlier, that the DPW right now has taken our master plan and all the functions and specifications that we did, and they've turned it into an RFP, request for proposal for architectural services, that they have completed, and right now it's under legal review. And once it's been cleared there, then they will put it out for the companies to participate.
so you're going to build it then in stages, and you're going to also build over existing property as well? I mean, in stages, you're going to start here and then eventually build?
Yes,
Yeah,
Senator.
okay,
Yes,
okay.
yes. We'll build it in phases.
In phases, okay.
Yeah.
What was the total cost of it?
The projected cost of the 1 through 4, phase 1 through 4, okay, that would give us 1,100 beds. That was $200 million.
$200 million.
At the time we did the project, at the time we did the master plan, and again, that number may fluctuate due to the cost of construction now,
And
but
how long ago was that?
2020, I believe, we
2020?
finished the 2021, right?
Okay.
2021 is when we finished the master plan. August is when we finished it.
Okay, and that's for 1,100 beds, you say?
About 1,100 beds,
1,100
yes, sir.
beds. Okay. And again, you said it was 200 million at the time, right?
Yes, Senator.
Yeah, okay. Was there a source of funding where grants and things of that nature, or what was the source of funding for or identified or possibly for that?
Senator, the master plan is under Title IX right now. It's
Sure.
embedded into the statute already. Everything as far as the funding is concerned, GITA is spearheading the funding.
Spearheading to find the funding
That's
source. Okay. Now, when you're looking at to build that, now I don't know how prisons work with this, but would it be similar when you build that? Would it be similar that you have a maintenance contract that comes with it? With that, I mean, I don't know how prisons work. That you have an outside maintenance crew that comes there. I mean, I don't know what the laws that govern prisons.
Right. So the bill that was passed by the legislature, I believe the last legislature, it was a PPP, private-public partnership,
okay.
portion, and the idea at the time was the vendor would come in and build the prison and maintain the prison, similar to the concept of JFK, how it was built, right?
The newer schools that are being built.
That's how
yeah.
the bill was
Okay,
passed,
okay.
and GITA was put in charge of working out the financial plan. And I believe there was some money from EIC or something in the bill.
Sure.
It's all in the bill, so I don't have it with me to speak on
Okay.
it, but that's how it got through the body of the legislature.
Okay, no, so it will come with the maintenance contract.
Yes,
It will,
Senator,
yeah,
as
okay,
it stands
okay,
now
okay.
with the bill that was passed in the last
Yeah,
legislature.
okay. And it was passed into law? It was passed into law?
It was passed and
was, it
signed.
was,
It
it
was,
was law.
yes.
Okay,
It was passed in
okay.
law, Senator.
Okay. I know, right? Yeah. Yeah. So, I know that they're going to go out again in the, well, basically, again, the prison's not going to happen. I mean, it's not going to open up next year, the year after that. When are we looking at possibly, based on the inception and all that, when are we looking at to really, really start building the prison?
The architect, again, Senator, that's the reason why we're doing the architects at this point is when the architect is done, that would give a more clear idea of the cost and what needs to be done and all those mechanisms. And, we determine by then what our next step would be if we have the money. How do we get the money? What money do we get? And we'll take it from there. So, and how long it would take. So, the first obstacle that we're trying to focus on right now is just getting that RFP out for the architectural service.
Okay,
And how long that
okay,
would take, I'm not
okay,
sure, but
Okay.
from there we can move forward.
Okay, okay. Again, in your prison population, you say up there you have 820?
Between Agana and Manila,
Yeah,
we
800.
have 820.
820. And Mangilao is what, 6 or
Aganya is about 200,
200.
so about 600 something in
600?
Manila. Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. And you say that it went from 680 to 800?
In January 1st of this year, we were at 680,
Okay.
and now it's at 820 today.
So it's safe to say that the toughest AG contributed to the rise of the from 680 to 800.
Well, he kept his promise.
Kept his promise. And again, what I'm trying to get to is that in 4 months, that's the growth, right?
Yes.
So
Yes, Senator.
we can anticipate in another 4 months, and another 4 months after that,
Yeah.
another quarter after that.
Yeah, and that's why, Senator, I think it was late last week, I had a Zoom with the Chief Prosecutor, Heather Zona, up there. And again, I can't dictate what they do and how their policy of their officer, but I did plead with her that, can you please take a look at the detainee population and see who you guys can put out and, safely without jeopardizing the public again.
Well, you got to remember also, Senator, that how the criminal justice system works is the courts have a lot
Sure,
to do with this.
Right, but I mean,
right?
nothing's stopping you
Right.
from writing a letter to
Right,
the
of
courts
course,
and
of
saying, hey,
course.
work with me.
But I'm
Yeah.
just saying the courts
Or the
are
chief of
one
staff.
that makes the final
Well,
decision.
why,
the judges
well,
release.
absolutely,
Yeah.
but I know the pressure is on the judges too.
Right.
Politically they're being pressured as well with that. But that being said, okay, I mean, so if this growth, Mr. Director, and at this point, this growth, if again within the next 3-4 months, you see this growth again, in 4 months from now, it's grown that much. Would you say you're in a state of emergency at that time? Then?
I don't want to forecast it because I don't even know what resources I'm going to have in 4 months, right? It's going to be dependent on what type of support and resources that I have at that point in time.
If you had the same resources that you have now and the same amount of officers and maybe more burnouts, again, I mean, with a rising population, prison.
That's kind of a rhetorical question, so.
But
I would.
All right, this is it, Senator Lujan. So, Mr. Carbolito, this is becoming very unproductive, I mean, we understand that you probably have your orders to paint the rosiest picture of the Department of Corrections, but, I mean, just the assemblage of facts that we have before us does not match manageable. So, I mean, I don't know, should we just ask Major Anton questions, or are we going to be honest with
You're
each other?
asking me the questions and I'm answering.
I know.
To the best that I can,
Right,
okay? That's it.
appreciate that.
Okay, no, and again, I'm just wondering because this growth, if this growth and you have the same funding source, and I don't see new officers coming in, and the more again, the higher, the more prison population you have, the higher. That probably it's going to contribute to more burnouts from your officers and all that. So I'm just thinking that if everything is status quo except for the prisoner population, that would be in a, as they say, it's worser state. I mean, it definitely will probably, again, it'll probably go from a 3 to a 4, right? Assuming it'll be that, yeah. And the 4 will become a 5 for Mr. We're just trying to help. We're
Yeah,
just trying to help.
we really are.
We're just trying to help. And, if you're shy or you can't call out the governor or Adelup at this point, we can.
Yeah.
We can, and we have, and we will. Because this is our community, this is our Guam, this is our prison. And we need to provide you the resources, but we cannot provide the resources if we don't get the facts straight. And if we don't get the facts straight and we're making decisions based on things that we're trying to be politically correct on, and we have prisoners that die or officers get hurt and things like that, and we could have done something about it, but we were trying to be politically correct about it, I won't be able to sleep at night. I don't know if you can, but I won't be able to. And so that's what we ask of all the executive branch to come in here, tell us the truth. It's not about, this is about us working together, because we're making decisions too. And if we don't get accurate information, we're gonna put out bills or whatever information based on inaccuracy. And we might not be providing you what you really need to do your jobs. And if you really need this and we're not providing it because we don't really need it, we're relying on you as the experts to tell us what you need and how much you need. And if you're trying to be politically correct, take us to the side. We're not being politically correct. We're trying to be correct for our community, to provide for our community, to have a safe community that we all work and live in. So, I mean, what else can I say?
What are the chief, if you could, sir, what are the chief of staff's plans to, what did you call it, streamlined recruitment process? Because I had met with the late director, Mr. Camacho December, was it I think it was December, maybe even late, I think it was, yeah, late December or January. Anyway, he had basically was very upset with the department administration because there was a backlog, they weren't getting the attention they needed. And now it is April, and you're saying the same thing. You said you had to go storm up there to DOA, right? Because there's a backlog. So what is the chief of staff and yourself doing to address this, streamline the
I
process?
explained it earlier, Senator.
They're taking the test.
They're already, it started already.
Right. So, but then you're also asking us to outsource hiring to a private entity?
That's future.
Right.
You know, but we're
But if it's
addressing-
working, why would you be
yeah,
asking
yeah.
us to outsource it?
Well, it's to expedite it more, you know, and make it more efficient. Right now, it's slow, right? That's what I'm saying. But we're doing everything we can with the current process. We're trying to expedite that current process, and we're trying to make changes to streamline that process for the future, right? But we're getting things going right now as we currently speak.
So how many
We're going to
officers-
hire 53 officers by the time I'm done. Okay?
53.
I made that a point already. 33 for FY23, and as soon as the FY23 is over, we're hiring 20 more. And I'm asking you to get 10 more, add 10 more to that 20 to make it 30, so we can have a 30-plus cycle going back to back.
So how many corrections officers have actually been hired this year?
I don't have that number.
Major Uggan?
I don't think,
You know?
I don't have that number.
You haven't hired a single corrections officer?
This year.
You have not hired a single corrections officer? It's almost May, and your director is saying it's working. I wrote a letter to Ed Byrne at the beginning of the year. It doesn't sound very manageable.
It's working now that I'm here.
How is it working
Well,
when
I'm here.
you haven't hired a
I'm
single
here,
correction
Senator.
officer?
I'm here.
I appreciate
I went
that,
down
sir.
there and I did what I needed to
Right.
do, right?
Yes.
So now it's working. It didn't work before I came in. Now it's working. I mean, that's what I'm telling you.
But again, you haven't hired
Go
anybody.
back. You can't be saying that it's not working.
Mr. Carbolito, it's working to me when you have enough officers.
Well,
So
things
with
are
all
not
due
gonna happen
respect, sir,
overnight,
the
Senator,
Department of
with the
Corrections
current
is not
process.
working
It's not
right
gonna happen
now. You're
overnight.
disrespecting your officers and the staff by continuing to
I'm not
parade
disrespecting anybody.
these politics here in this building. I
Nobody's
don't
playing
appreciate that.
politics.
I don't
I'm
appreciate
doing what I need to
this
do.
unwillingness to admit that we have a major problem at the Department of Corrections. You
can
know it.
perceive whatever you want to do and do what
The reality is,
and I'm doing what I need to do.
I appreciate that, but the reality is we can't deny the situation of the Department of Corrections. Major Anton Uggan, who's got 30 years of experience, believes that there's a state of emergency currently at the prison. You're calling it manageable.
I didn't hear it.
We can play back the tape, or I can send you the link. But again, this is really unproductive. We're really here to help.
That's right.
I understand that you can't speak ill of any of the processes. That's what it seems like. But in order for us to correct the problems, we have to first find out what they are.
We keep going
Right.
over and over what you just asked, and I keep answering everything that you're asking.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
The same question, the same answer.
Right.
I don't know what you're
But
trying
when
to
you
do.
tell me that it's working, and I
Because
find
it
out you
is.
haven't
I
hired
just
a
told-
single corrections officer,
It's not going to happen overnight, Senator. I'm
it
telling you
hasn't
that.
happened all year, Mr. Carbolito.
Well, that's before I got in, right? And I'm telling you, it's happening now. Now that I'm here. What do you want me to do? Make it happen overnight? That's not beyond my, that's not my
I want you to
control.
be forthright with the committee.
I'm being forthright, and I'm telling you, I'm making things happen now that I'm here.
Anything else you want to say?
That's it.
Sure. So in what ways do you guys plan to streamline recruitment?
I explained that earlier in the
Explain, give
presentation.
me more details, please.
Right? I already told you. The process that's currently going on right now, right, with all this, the statutory mandates, right, the polygraph, the psychological test, the background, the discussion that's being done with DOA and the front office is legal, right? Because they're looking at the statutes to make sure that we're not violating anything, okay, as far as the process is concerned. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to hire at the front end, okay, and get everything done that needs to be done based on the statutory mandates, which I just mentioned a few, right, before they take an oath and before they're sworn in, okay, and become a full-fledged officer. You're not a peace officer until you're sworn in and taking an oath, okay? You have no authority and you have no obligation to fulfill any mandates until you're sworn in and you're an actual peace officer. So that's where we're working to try and streamline that process so we can get people in the front end and get them on board already, get them started in training, and then get everything done while they're in training, and before they're sworn in, everything should be done when they take an oath.
So which of the statutory requirements are you guys looking at fiddling with?
I told you, I just mentioned a few, right? The background check, right? The drug test for sure has to be done right up front, okay? Once you're eligible, you take the physical agility test. We're also going to do that while in training, okay? Because that's also a requirement, okay? So the written test, the physical agility test, those are all going to be part of the onboard while in training process, right? Everything is going to be done while they're in training. That's how we're trying to streamline the process. You have the psychological test, polygraph, all those other things that need to be done, okay?
I know Senator Rekinata had a bill for, was it Parkinson? About the psychological, I think, right, testing?
Yeah,
Yeah, right?
it's kind of what he was talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah, okay. And that's to streamline that, right? I mean,
Right.
to have the process come in later on
Right.
as opposed to entry?
Yes.
Okay.
Right before they graduate.
Okay, okay.
Before they raise their hand, take an oath, and swear, okay? That's when they're authorized to,
Okay.
enforce,
Okay.
right, the law.
Yeah. But they would go through the psychological
Yes,
again?
everything.
Okay, okay.
Everything will be completed before they take an oath.
Right. I think the issue that Senator Parkinson had brought up was that they conduct all these clearances before they're actually sworn in. A lot of times they just leave because they don't want to, then it's wasted money.
Waiting time maybe between,
There's a lot of
yeah.
wait time in between, so that's why not get them on board already? And while they're training, you might lose a few, right? They might come back and say, hey, this guy's got or he can't pass the psych eval. He lied during his polygraph. We don't want these, those kinds of people on board, right? So you're probably gonna lose a few, right?
Yeah.
Well, they're on probation anyway, right? Until 6 months later, that's when they're signed off
Yeah.
to become permanent, once they satisfy everything.
Right. And you know, I understand why you're getting upset, but I just want you to know the intent of this line of questioning is because I believe, as a novice senator, that there is a state of emergency at the Department of Corrections when you have corrections officers working 24-hour shifts, 16-hour shifts. I believe that we're endangering their lives. So I think it's an emergency. So I want to know what you, as the director, what you're going to do about it. And so when I ask how soon are you going to hire officers, and when I express my disappointment that we haven't hired a single officer all year to assist these hardworking corrections officers who are working a full day, 24 hours, 16 hours, routinely, that's where I'm coming from. And I don't want to, I know, but I just don't want to hear that it's manageable. I don't want this dismissiveness. And that's what I mean by I feel like it's disrespectful to these officers who are working 16 to 24-hour shifts to have you sitting across from us saying, oh, Munga, we got it, Chief of Staff's on it. It doesn't sound like anyone's on anything.
These
It's
officers
frustrating.
know what I'm doing for this department, okay? They know I'm fighting for them, okay? I want to make that clear, okay? They all understand that. When I got on board, the 2.5 years that I served up there, I got things done, okay? And I'm trying to get things done again now that I'm back, okay? For as long as I'm here, I'm going to get things done. That's what I told them when I first got in. And they believe that. The morale is higher, okay? They know that help is coming. There's help, there's light at the end of the tunnel, okay? Everyone understands that already.
You know, I have to interject at this point because the last time I checked, we're still dealing with the same administration. And I mean, I can appreciate your coming on board saying that these are the things, and we're hopeful that you can do it. You know, no disrespect to the late director either, because we had those conversations with him not that long ago also. In trying to facilitate, you know, you sat there in those meetings with us of trying to get the additional hiring on board. And that's where our challenge is looking at this issue. We're still dealing with the same administration. This can't all be individually about each of us. I mean, we'd all like to think running the agency that we were the best thing since sliced bread to happen. But these are just things that routinely should happen. These are not extraordinary events that are needed to operate, in this particular case, the Department of Corrections. These are routine things that need to happen, and it is concerning because this is not the first time we've heard the story. So we appreciate you stepping up, because this is a tough job. I'm sure that when everyone has to pick their choices of departments, DOC is not at the top of the list for most, right? So I think the fact that you're willing to come back and do this work is appreciated. But from our perspective, on this side of the aisle, you know, looking at the landscape here, we are concerned that this has not been prioritized, not specifically you who've just arrived back, but just in general by the administration, because they're really the ones who should be announcing that the Department of Corrections is at a state of emergency, and these are the resources that they need. And they should be the ones knocking on our door, coming down to the Guam legislature saying, hey, we need your assistance to facilitate. I mean, we're the ones who are having to go and lift up the rug and look underneath, and why do we need to do that? That's what's concerning. Otherwise, everything, goodness, the money's falling from the sky, and yet, you know, we're finding out there are a lot of things here that are not being addressed. The fact that some of these basic programs that you had for these inmates are not being executed now, to me, just creates another environment of where they're there, and instead of doing productive things, more frustration, more negative energy, more negative focus is here because they can't do their work release programs. They're not out doing their educational programs. They're not being able to get credit, you know, or time served so that they can reduce their sentence. Those are, you know, just basic rehabilitation things. As a matter of fact, we want to see more. We've seen more in the past at Department of Corrections so that we can definitely, for those inmates that can be rehabilitated, we want that opportunity for them to be rehabilitated and reintegrated back in our community. But right now, everything's at a standstill. This can't be about you. It can't individually be about you and what you're going to do, because you have officers and others that have been here for many, many, many years that have been dealing with these challenges, and instead of getting better, things are sliding backward. And that's what we're seeing. I mean, that's what we're seeing on our side of the aisle that we're concerned with. And I'm sure you're going to do your very best for the time that you're there, but that's just not enough for what it is that needs to be accomplished at this juncture. This is year 5 and counting down. This is the same administration. And so, I mean, for those of us, like I said, who've been on your side, have been in your seat, you know, if this was my boss, I couldn't, this wouldn't be acceptable. They wouldn't be happy with my response if I was sitting here and going, this is where I'm at. If anything, if I brought these concerns to them, this is what I can do, but I need your assistance, this should be a priority right now, because something happens up there. I mean, we just heard a prisoner died. I don't know the circumstance. It could have been natural causes for all I know, but we've had circumstances not that long ago of a prisoner being killed, you know, while they're in your custody. These are unsafe circumstances that, you know, your employees are in and these prisoners are in, and it doesn't sound at this point that we're at a comfortable level. That's what we're expressing to you. You can do all this and then you're not there tomorrow, then what? Everything comes to a standstill again? Are we saying the late director wasn't doing anything about it? Because we just had these very same conversations, and he's relaying some of the frustrations of trying to facilitate through Department of Administration. You know, you guys did a job fair, and where are the applications? They're still sitting. But other people are getting hired, right? Other people are getting hired. So why isn't this the priority? Where this should be a priority in our view. So I just want to relay that. I mean, we can go in circles tonight about this and argue about this, but I think from the public standpoint, you know, now this has got to be on the front burner. Hopefully the front office will respond sooner to assist and facilitate, because this is not a very safe situation. The pressure cooker now that's brewing here is something's going to give at some point. And you have a tremendous task, and I'm sure, like I said, you're going to do your very best, but, you know, it's bigger than us.
Senator Blas?
Thank you. You know, I look around the room and I see many of you that were around when I used to sit on that side of the table, okay, in law enforcement. You know, between, you know, Major and Joe, you know, I think, you know, Joe, you got an ally on this side, okay? I know your work ethic, okay? I know your passion, okay? I know that you've always been somebody that wants to get things done. I know that. And I applaud you for that. I just hope that you recognize that if it's not the Department of the Corrections, we have the Guam Memorial Hospital in front of us. If it's not the Guam Memorial Hospital, we have, you know, the Department of Public Works in front of us. We have the Department of Education in front of us. And so we see things from a macro view. And what we're relaying, Joe, and this is what we want to be able to do is we appreciate and we know, first off, you're not going to be hired by this administration or any administration if they didn't think you can do the job. That's not the question. Question here is whether or not they're going to give you the support for you to do your job. And that's our job, to push that. Okay? So please don't take anything personal here in that, you know, this is not a witch hunt. This is, look, from our side, we're hearing everything is honky-dory, that everything is fine, that we have the money. But then when you're talking to the community side and what's being reported and what's being said, it's another story. It's our job to be able to sift through the minutiae and through all of that so that we can find where we need you. We've got a lot of notes here with regard to, after this meeting, how we can help you. Okay? And each of us have different, for lack of a better term, areas of expertise that we can look into so we can help you so that we can get to it. I want you to have the canines. I want you to have the additional officers. Okay? I don't want you to have procurement problems. Okay? It shouldn't be hard to go get beds. Right? But when the promises are being made, it says we're going to be working on this, and I don't even blame the chief of staff if he says, okay, you report to him. He's got 1,000 other things that is on his mind. It's our job to keep your priorities his priorities. Okay? That's our job. And so, please, don't take any of this as an offense or as an assault on you guys. The chairman here, he brought this meeting together because we're finding in all facets and all areas of the government that while it is being portrayed and proclaimed by one way in the media, it's actually in reality another way. And at the end of the day, nobody down in Guadalupe or nobody in here is going to be blamed for something that happens up there except all of you. That's what we don't want to happen. Okay? Now, let me get to the questions I was supposed to ask. Okay. I noticed in your ongoing and upcoming projects, you got a number of different ongoing projects that you got, and what caught me interesting here is there at least in 3 different areas you reference Department of Interior or federal funding as your funding source. I think that it's no big secret in the news lately that we're not looking at any DOI funding for next year, or we can anticipate that there's going to be no funding for next year. Does that pronouncement or does that announcement affect any of your ongoing programs or your future programs in as far as funding?
No, Senator. The current DOI funding is for the fire sprinkler system.
You got here for your management information system?
So the management information system, first, let me start with that. That contract has been signed by the governor on the 18th. We're now registering the contract with DOA, and hopefully by the end of the week, it's registered and processed, and we'll send the letter to proceed to the vendor. So that's taken care of.
How much is that for?
There are 3 different grants totaling over $1 million. Bergjan grant, and then I believe some local funding mixed in there. So it's coming from multiple funding sources, but that has already been taken care of, and it's just a matter of now registering the contract that has been signed, went through the AGs and all that process, and we're ready to go with that. The fire sprinkler system, there is a DOA grant, about $2 million. It expires in 2025. The scope of work for that particular project is with DPW, and it's been with them for more than a year now, because they are the lead one on that one. We tried to do this a few years ago, but the contractor at the last minute pulled out, and so we had to restart the process again. So that's with DPW now, and that grant, I believe, is 2025 that it expires. I believe that's the only...
and then you got your internet infrastructure upgrade.
So the internet infrastructure, Senator, we actually had a first walkthrough today, and so we're working at that. Once I get a price quote, then once we get a quote of how much it's going to cost, then we're going to work from there on working with that. We're working with the governor's office on using some federal money that's already existing to probably use that. But I need to get a cost estimate first before I can go and ask for the money.
Okay, so let's go. So you basically have already found, and the money's in the bank is what I'm asking. I don't...
Basically, Senator, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is not in anticipation of future funding, but it's there already.
Yes.
You've been assured of that.
Yes, sir. We're just working on it right now to get the quotes and then go from there.
We got to take a look at that, all right? And because I'm very much concerned of the recent announcement from the Biden administration, the Department of Administration. You do know that after this year, compact impact reimbursements as discretionary funding is 0. Okay.
Yes, Senator, I heard the news. I saw it on
Okay.
the news today.
And you know, this goes to the next question I got, is of your inmate and detainee population, what percentage or what number, okay, your best guess estimate as to what your FAS population, your freely associated state population is in there?
I asked Mark Paris earlier to get that number ready.
So you knew I was going to ask the question?
Yes.
Okay.
He knew.
Okay.
So, total population, federal, local inmates, and local detainees. FSM is at 22%, Palau 1%, Marshall Islands, there's only about 3 of them, so it's not even a percent. Total about 23%.
So about 23%. Of your inmate population, your cost per day, what is it? It's no longer 90, right? I remember at one time there was a figure of $90 a day.
I think the number we got at right now is like 118 a day.
118
on
a
the
day.
average, again, that's on the average cost, because some inmates, quite frankly, cost us a lot more because of medical issues and some other things that we have to deal with.
Okay, so I mean, just looking at these numbers at 22% or 23%, okay, at a cost of about 118 today, you sure as hell could be able to use some of that compact impact reimbursement money to be able to help you with that, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay.
Any little money coming our way would greatly
You
help
see,
us.
that's the kind of information that we need, okay, so that we're able to fight for you guys, and appreciate that, okay? You know, so that, and again, we're taking a look at this thing as from a macro view. This is not just DOC. That we have to look at it from government of Guam, okay, and how DOC is going to fit in that. Right. All right, and so I'm going to do some DI math here. Okay, at 22% of 850, 800, was that based on the population of how many inmates?
Well, of a population 820, there's about 184 plus 8, it's about 190 something, 192,
So 192?
195.
195. Okay, you got the calculator out. Do me,
Yeah, let me
do me
calculate that for
195 times 119. What's that?
195 times 119. 195 times 119. 23,000 straight. 23,205.
43,205?
23, 205
That's per day.
per day.
Multiply that by 365.
8,469,825.
Yeah. See now what I'm going to fight for you for? Okay? To try to get back that funding so you can help to pay for some of that. Appreciate that. Appreciate the conversation. Thanks a lot, Mr. Chair. Thanks.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Senator Lujan. Wow. Thank you, Senator Blas. Was there a U.S. DHS risk assessment conducted at the Department of Corrections? By James Cruz, U.S. DHS, is that Department of Homeland Security? Health and Safety?
Hello, yes. Yeah, he came in there, wow, I want to say 2018 when Mr. Lamarena was still there.
Wow,
He came in and made a security assessment.
right,
I've never got anything back, and I did reach out to him about a half a dozen times,
right.
and he's never given us anything back. But
Was there a grant opportunity?
he came in on his own. We didn't spend any money on it. I don't know what funds he didn't use any
No, I
funds.
believe
think.
that the assessment was conducted and then there might have been a subsequent grant opportunity for the prison.
I don't know, but we did ask him because he had mentioned it in one of our trainings that that's what he did. So I asked him to come in and do it, and I was going to use the information as part of my master plan, you know, as another chapter in the master plan, but he never came back with any report. And, you know, I did, you know, email him several times and talk to him. Hey, sir, where's the report? But COVID came and all the other issues came, so it kind of got pushed back.
Right,
But we did do a security assessment,
right.
is what he came in to do.
Mr. Carbolito, I don't want to further upset you, but I did have this the letter. As I told you, I'm familiar with several corrections officers, and I did ask for testimony, but for whatever reason, I'm not saying it's because of you, but they advised me that if they were to provide a testimony publicly, that they would be reprimanded. And so I just wanted to share just a little bit of some of the concerns that they're expressing, if that's okay? Yeah. Okay. And so they're basically referencing the unsafe work conditions that they work under. They here cite Public Law 1919, which mandates that employees not be compelled to work in unsafe conditions. After citation of unsafe working condition by the division, no employee may be compelled or in any way coerced to work in an unsafe working condition. Anyone who compels or coerces an employee to do so shall be guilty of a misdemeanor and in addition shall be held personally liable for actual and punitive damages should an employee suffer injury as a result of said unsafe working condition. Civil actions may be brought against such person without reference to the Government Claims Act. No disciplinary action may be brought against an employee who either refuses to work in an unsafe working condition after citation of same by the division or who reports an unsafe working condition to either the safety officer or the division head. And so basically, they're saying all departments, this is common sense, all departments, agencies, public corporations, and other public instrumentalities to include Department of Corrections shall take appropriate measures to eliminate or reduce hazardous working conditions. When it's not possible to eliminate or reduce hazardous working conditions, and that's kind of what it sounds like here, although you've termed it as manageable yet concerning. When it's not possible to eliminate or reduce hazardous working conditions, the departments, agencies, public corporations, or Department of Corrections shall request inspection assistance from the Division of Occupational Safety and Health of the Guam Department of Labor. So I guess in your opinion, do you believe that the Department of Corrections is a safe workplace for the corrections officers and the staff that are working there?
Nothing has been. So nothing has been brought to my attention from any of those employees, whoever wrote those things, and to explain what they actually mean by
What they actually mean by
unsafe
unsafe working
right.
condition?
Yeah, or citing whatever working conditions that they have
Yeah.
for me to address. So
So-
they should actually address that to me.
Right.
And I would then
But-
make the
but-
assessment and if I need to, of course, base it on the facts and circumstances of the situation.
Let me repeat the question. Do you believe that the Department of Corrections is an unsafe working place?
I'm not aware.
corrections
of-
officers
I'm
and the
not aware
staff.
of what they're talking about there.
Well, you
about
worked there
them.
twice,
Yeah.
Mr. Carbolito, so I'm asking you, is it a safe workplace for the corrections officers and the staff that are working there? It's a simple question, very simple.
It's safe.
It's safe.
From my assessment, other than the manpower issues that we're faced with, I think, of course, based on the dilapidated facilities, it could be better, right? The working conditions could be better, but we've overcome all these obstacles in the past, even when I was there the past couple of years.
So you're saying it's a safe,
At least from what I'm aware of. Now, if they're citing something else that I'm not aware of, then they need to bring that up to my attention.
I mean, they could be
in writing.
referencing, call me crazy, but they could be referencing the ratio of corrections officers to inmates, right? I mean,
I don't want to
I would call
assume-
that
yeah,
unsafe.
I wouldn't want to assume anything.
But I mean,
until-
anybody
yeah.
with common sense would probably call that unsafe.
I hate to assume, any
Yeah,
facts or
okay.
circumstances.
Major Uggan.
They just need to bring it up to my attention.
Correct.
That's the proper protocol.
I just think that we need to establish a baseline reality here.
But you're generalizing. You're generalizing. You need facts and you need evidence.
I think the
for you
facts
to-
we've heard
for
a
you
lot of
to,
facts today.
To act, no, but it's different circumstances.
So you
or
believe,
facts
again,
for every person.
you
If
believe
they
that
make
the-
complaints, then they have to.
Just
let me know what
baseline,
the-
sir,
the facts are.
baseline. Is the Department of Corrections safe for the corrections officers working
I
there?
can't answer that question.
thank you.
Generally.
Thank you.
What you're asking, the way
Right
you're
on.
asking it.
Thank you. Major Uggan, I'm sorry again, but in your opinion,
The statute you read as I was listening to it, in terms of, the buildings, for example, we don't have buildings where the roof's going to collapse. We don't have rats in the facility. We do pest control and things like that. We have a very strict sanitation. Considering the buildings are old, we take pride in cleaning the facility. We have inmates that clean and bush cut and keep all the overgrown and try to keep those other animals, out of the prison, right? We've collected the stray dogs and the stray animals out of there and taken them out. So in terms of safety for those kind of things, I think we are, okay. But we could be better because the buildings, again, are old, and we are continuously having to respond to toilet issues and plumbing issues and light issues, and that's an everyday issue. I mean, again, 29 years there, and from day one when I started, some of these problems are still there. The buildings are just getting older and older and we do maintenance, and the director said we did renovations and things like that, but they're being housed with 24 hours with some bad people that don't respect government property, so they damage it. I mean, we fix it today, they damage it tomorrow. We buy 120 mattresses. We do a cell inspection a few weeks from now, and some of them are going to be torn and damaged, and so these are the challenges we keep doing now. In terms of the officer and the inmate population, as we said earlier, that is a concerning number. It's getting higher, and we are working on the hiring, as the director said, but if these numbers keep going up, we're concerned now. We're all concerned now about it. I mean, we do talk about it ourselves in management about these numbers. In fact, the director, asked me, let's reach out to the AGs to try to do this. So we see it. We see the train coming. And we have done our best to juggle resources and come up with plans and, to deal with this. And, but if these numbers continue to go up under our current facility, I'm concerned. I mean, I'm having a hard time sleeping now, but I'm concerned because when my phone rings at 2 in the morning, because something had happened, I pray to God it's not something else. And I think we all here feel that same way when that phone rings at 2 in the morning. And, the director and the deputy, they have a very tough job because, I don't want to compare, but when something happens in the community, the chief will get a call, hey, chief, we had another murder or something. Okay, brief me in the morning. Fine. But when it happens in a prison, it's a whole different ballgame now when those things happen. So, the stress involved on trying to manage something that he inherited that's been going on for more than 30-some years. Again, when I started in 29, I remember when Ed Batanga did articles about the overcrowding. I remember it was in PDN, overcrowding. And when we did the master plan, I said the same thing in the legislature, that if we don't get this new prison built, we're going to be here every year on a repeat cycle because these problems are still there. So, and now it's just with these numbers going up and crime out there and stuff. And I respect everybody in their job and the AG and what they're trying to do, and I understand. But we need to do something. It's really getting challenging, and I don't know what else to say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Otoigui, would you say that the Department of Corrections is a safe workplace for the corrections officers and the staff?
I think with the number of inmates, detainees per officers that are working there now, and as an experienced law enforcement officer too, and I see it, I think we need the help like right now. We need the numbers today. Like when director first came back, he got it started, right? So we're getting that 33, and it's coming. And it would have taken longer if you didn't come up with the idea to streamline this. We're gonna at least get those 33 in, get them trained up, get them in there, and get it closer to 300 officers at least. I mean, we're outnumbered out in the street too. When I was a cop out there in the street, I'm dealing with thousands of people. But now where I'm at, I'm now in a different beast, right? Law enforcement, but you're in a box. basically, or you're in a big playground with a high number of inmates, different personalities in there. I guess I could say different mental state or well-being, and it's almost like we're David and we're fighting Goliath again, right? It's not new news. I mean, I've been in law enforcement for not as long as some of my coworkers here, but I've seen it out in the street, and I've seen it with the guys that I know that work here at DOC. But it's alarming. But it's something that the director has been diligently working on, and right now with the process, it's out of our hands right now. We're pushing forward with DOA, and that's usually one of the longest things is to actually get processed in just to train, you know. And then after that, we got to deal with the training, which is going to take 2 to 6 months. But he has done a lot right now. I mean, if we're just talking about manpower, we're pulling in 33 bodies in there.
What's the timeline on that? I might have missed that when you
Well,
raised your voice.
I only know about like the GPD side with hiring, but not with like DOC.
Right. So when will these 33 corrections officers be on the job?
We stick to the plan with the streamlining. You know, hopefully we can get all of these guys processed in 4 to 6 weeks. And then it's going to be 2 months, I think, for the training itself before they get sworn in, after they're in.
So about 3 months.
Roughly, yeah.
Okay.
Question, with regard to the recruitment of these, and you're going to do the assessments while in training, what status are they in, or what did you hire them as? Or what do you intend to hire them as?
Well, if you look at the statute, right, on Title IX, it says appointed as corrections officers, right? But if you look at the peace officer standards, right, under Title 17, it says that you're not a peace officer until you take an oath and you're sworn in.
Okay, I understand that. This is okay when you hire them.
They're hired as corrections officers, but technically they're not.
So
Because that's the language that you see in Title IX.
So they're receiving corrections officers pay during training.
Correct.
Okay, and it's then through that process.
Correct.
Okay, so what you're doing then is you're using then what is post-defined as peace officer before you can say that they can go out, but you're still hiring them as corrections officers.
That's correct. Because that's what it's currently on the announcement with DOA. And that's by statute under Title IX.
Okay. Just be very careful
Yeah,
because
yeah. No, that's why I said we're talking with our legal counsel and DOA's legal. So those
you
are
don't
all
have,
the discussions.
do you
that
have
we're-
a recruit position?
Not right now. It used to be. We used to have a recruit position, but it's no longer. It's changed to correction.
I just don't want you to get into any legal problem, you know, with this.
Yes,
this,
those
okay.
are all part of the discussions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because then if you need, I mean, if it's just a matter of then creating a recruit position for that and giving you the authority to do that,
And
that's something we can work on. Just a little
understood,
concerned
sir.
about that.
Understood.
Thanks.
I'm aware.
Minor, it sounds like a minor little 2-line bill. We can help you out. Senator Lujan?
A question about the educational program that you had there. Now, when you said when COVID hit, basically that's where it came to a standstill.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, were they with DOE, GCC?
They were all with
UOG?
GCC.
GCC. Okay. Because they're inmates that I guess are able to go out in the community and be educated, and that's where the correctional facility basically definition comes in, right? Part of that. Because they're inmates, were they not qualified to be online, like most of the students who didn't have face-to-face anymore?
They are qualified to be online, however, the infrastructure, equipment to attend online is not there
At DOC?
at DLC.
At DOC. Okay. Now, did you guys qualify based on the funding that came from the feds to be able, because I know DOE had all these laptops that they qualified for based on the funding that came in. Did you guys not qualify for that because you are a correctional facility, you had inmates that were going to school, and then now they were shut out, and because you didn't have the infrastructure in place, but did you guys not qualify for funding?
We weren't offered laptops. Those were for the public schools. And at the same time, the use of laptops within the facility with inmates was also seen as a security concern.
Sure, sure. but let me ask, because now the reality, are you now qualified? I mean, maybe to house a facility, for those monies to be had, to have that facility in place. I mean, I understand that they cannot take it back to themselves,
Right.
But you would have a place where an officer will be there to watch them or whatever, and then they go to they are able to do their online schooling. I mean, because I'd assume at this point, because I think prisons in the states had made some adjustments to how they were dealing with inmates as well, based on COVID, and I can't see how we don't as well qualify for some funding, especially when we're a definition of a correctional facility, that we don't have the proper equipment and facilities to facilitate the correctional facility side of DOC. I mean, could you check into it, and whether or not we'll be able to qualify for some, because we still have some money in there.
We will
there's
look
still money in
into
there.
it. We'll look into it, but at the same time, GCC needs to offer online classes, which I'm unsure of. But we will look into it.
Okay. No, I appreciate that, because you're going to have that ongoing problem anyway. I mean, you're going to always have inmates, and you're going to have some qualified to be able to go to school. And so, again, we can use some of that money and maybe even further grants to enhance the facility with that. But thank you very much. And Mr. Director, thank you very much for stepping up to the plate and wanting to come back and serve the community. We appreciate that.
Sure.
And again, we're here. We want to help. We want to help. My office is always open to your calls or visit, and likewise everybody else. And again, but thank you for stepping up to the plate. We appreciate your service, and we thank you as well for your prior service and your continuance. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you, Senator Lujan. Thank you, Senator Blas. Thank you, Senator Brown. I just wanted to wish you the best of luck, Mr. Toigby. I know there were many issues. I'm not sure if you guys had heard about the previous deputy director. Were you aware of any issues with the previous deputy director? I heard that Major Hogan, have you heard any? No? Yeah, I had heard from multiple sources that he had turned in his resignation and it wasn't accepted, but he just wasn't showing up to work for like months. I don't know, did you hear about this? That's why I'm just thanking you for your service in advance. And, it's a tough job to fill that deputy director slot, right? And I know the previous director had a, pretty extensive law enforcement background, so I just wish you the best of luck. Thank you. Major Hogan, thank you again for your service. There's still a lot of questions I had, but, I promised the staff we're going to do the quickest hearing ever, and now they're all mad, so that didn't happen. But I just wanted to, at what point will we be able to get the inmates out bush cutting? I had a lot of requests about that, because I know we can't even offer the program, so we don't have enough corrections officers.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah.
When we get the recruitments on board, then hopefully we'll get to that point where we send them out.
Yeah. And I want to start over with you, Joe. I respect you. I respect that you came back to this job that is very hard to fill, right? They really had to I mean, none of the cabinet all-stars wanted to be director, right? And so they had Mr. Bob Camacho. He was great. You know, I think you had a pretty good run the first time. And so I do respect you and I do appreciate your service. But, you know, it's difficult, right? When, as our job here in this committee is we have to assess and then address, but we can't assess anything if we're not going to be honest with each other, or if there's, you know, politics preventing an honest and open discussion. I'm not here to make anybody look bad. I'm here to represent the needs of the people. And like I told you, I'd heard a lot of concerns that I wanted to ask you about. And so I hope that we can have a real, genuine, productive relationship going forward, because that's going to benefit the people of Guam. It's not going to benefit the corrections officers or the inmates and the detainees, who I also am very concerned about, right? Because we're putting them in conditions that some would call cruel and unusual because of the facility and the lack of programs that we're not able to offer because we don't have enough people. So I want to see this through, and I want to work with you. It's very frustrating to try and make progress with the Department of Administration. The late director we had very long conversations about the stockpiling of documents, the slow process of the Department of Administration. It was actually one of his #1 concerns. And so the reason why I was really trying to get that out of you is because I just want to make sure that, you know, I can trust you to just go handle DOA on your own, because Mr. Camacho wasn't able to do that. I had to write a letter. That didn't really do anything. If we're looking at April now and we haven't had a single corrections hire. And so I understand what's at play here. I know that, you know, you're probably going to get a star and a smiley face when you go back to meet with the chief of staff, or, you know, give me a hard time, but I'm not here to give you a hard time. Okay, I'm really here to try and reach the solutions that we need to reach for the safety of the inmates and detainees and the safety of the officers, the very fine officers that you have under your watch, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Senator Brown?
I think considering the circumstance, I mean, we all have, you know, priorities in all the department and agencies, but considering where we're at with this, I think it'd be reasonable if you call a follow-up next 6 to 8 weeks,
Sure.
so that we can get status updates and the public can get a status update of where we're at with DOC.
Are you down for that? Is that a good timeline for you, 6 to 8 weeks? So if you said that we're getting 33 in 4 to 6 weeks, another month of training, then maybe that would be a good time.
Probably.
Yeah? Or you want to wait till next year?
How about we make the back-to-back cycles go into
Yeah,
effect
we're
first?
going to have to catch
You know
up
what
with
I'm
you
saying?
anyway, sir.
Yeah.
And, you know, his budget's coming up, so, yeah. We're going to be best friends,
All right.
okay?
All right.
Thank you. Right on. So again, thank you all of the DOC family for coming out, for the support, especially on this, you know, what's turned out to be a little bit of a late night. And this has been a roundtable discussion with the Committee on Education, Public Safety, and the Arts. Again, I want to thank my colleagues, Senator Roy Kanata, Senator Frank Blas Jr., Senator Jesse Lujan, thank you for your questions. Senator Joanne Brown, Major Anton Uggan, again, thank you. Thank you to the DSC family that's assembled here, and of course to my staff. This roundtable hearing of the Department of Corrections is called to a close at 8:29 Chamorro Standard Time. Hasta, adios.